because the fact that he'd shared it was indisputable. I mean, you know what it's like when you look at those permissions that have been given, those edit permissions. So that bit was easy. It was okay, but what are we talking about here? And so I was able to look alongside Heroic senior management on a share screen what those files were, what was in them. And it was a lot of stuff, and a bit of stuff had to be explained to me. But given that there was a high volume there, I didn't, in the end, have to look at every file because there was a lot of stuff. But I looked at enough to be able to know that in the hands of an opposing team, this would be very, very useful information.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna see you rolling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parimatch, your esports teammate. Hey buddy, let me show you how to fix that. Bitskins.com. Buy and sell skins instantly. Deposit and withdraw funds instantly with crypto or directly to your Visa card. Bitskins.com, the best skin marketplace.
HLTV Confirmed Season 5, Episode 52, powered by Xtrfy. That's xtrfy.com for all your peripheral needs. Parimatch, gamble responsibly, and Bitskins, buy and sell CSGO skins and items. Much love to our sponsors for making this one all happen. Okay, so none of this messing around today, none of the nonsense that we normally do in the intros. We've got a very serious set of topics to get through. I'm somewhat nervous about this one, I'm going to be honest. I haven't felt this way since I had to sit an exam in high school, right? You know how you have that feeling the night before? I got that. Now, before we get stuck into it, Prof, what's your vibe check? Are you feeling cool?
Feeling smooth and cool.
Smooth and cool. Okay, you're definitely looking that way. Striker, what about you? You got all the questions locked and loaded?
Sure, yeah, ready.
Okay, I'm liking this. So we're going into the HUNDEN Chronicles. Lucas, is everything looking okay when we dive into the HUNDEN Chronicles? Everything fine on your end? That's fine.
Yes.
You can do that.
Do that. Okay.
That's all right. We'll be fine. Are we able to keep going, Lucas, while this happens?
Yes.
Okay, fine. All right. So, Ian, before I get you involved in this, I just want to set some stuff up for our viewers at home. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Ian, he is the commissioner over there at ESIC. For the uninitiated, that is the Esports Integrity Commission. If you want to find out more about ESIC, you can head over to esic.gg. And also, back in September of last year, after we had the fallout of the coaching bug scandal, we discussed Ian's history, right? And if you guys want to find more out about that, I actually have some links to drop in the chat here of that podcast that we did with him. So I'm going to whack that one in the chat here. If you guys want to go and check that out after this one's done, you want to learn a little bit more about Ian and ESIC and whatnot, you can go and watch that episode a little bit later. All right, Lucas, when you can, roll the bumper and we'll get this one going. Okay, so Ian, welcome back on the show. Thank you very much for joining us during, well, we only seem to have you on when the drama's happening, mate. And it looked like all the drama just started kicking off in this last week. So I assume you've been busy?
Yeah, it's been a pretty insane period, thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry that I am only on during the drama. I guess it's the nature of the job. I should have expected that. The day I get a call from you guys going, "Hey, everything's nice and smooth and easy. Come and chat to us." I guess that'd be a miracle.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll have to work out a time we can get you on to talk about something less drama related. I don't even know what that would be, but yeah, we in the future things could be possible.
Yeah,
Now, I kind of want to make sure for everybody at home, because some of our viewers might not be completely up to date with what I'm dubbing the Hunden Chronicles. I think we're up to
sure.
like part 7 or 8 right now with the dog biting back. Now, I just want to give people a quick bit of history. If you're not familiar with Hunden, his name is Nikolai Peterson. He's 30 years of age. He's used to be a professional Counter-Strike player, and then he was the coach most recently of Heroic. In recent times, he's been involved in a bunch of drama, right? He was part of a Mad Lions team back in early 2020. He retired as a player, became the coach of Heroic, and then from there, that's when shit really started to hit the fan. In August, actually to this day, last year, Hunden, Dead, and Zona were all banned for the coaching bug exploit that was found out, and that was a big talking point of last year. Heroic then suspended Hunden. They kept him on within the team as an analyst, and then they reinstated him. And in more recent times, it appears that Hunden has been sharing documents with another team, and he's found himself banned again. So that's the quick little catch up. That's the cliff notes of this whole situation. But we're going to focus in here on obviously the most recent scenario that's gone on down, which has all just unfolded in this last week. So what's the best way to summarize this, guys? Does anybody want to take the lead here? Striker, Prof, Ian, does anybody want to jump and explain the state of how we got here with Hunden?
I guess what we can just from our point of view, how we first found about this is like when IM Cologne was almost starting or just started, we started hearing some things about like, oh, there is some strat sharing, something's going on. We don't know, like it was a potential to be like huge. We didn't know what it was. Then nothing happened. Then we started getting, let's say, the information kind of dripped out piece by piece. And I know the timeline is better to leave that to Striker, because he knows how we got the information, but not exactly how things happen. I don't think even after this episode we'll actually know the exact timeline of how things happen, but we'll try to figure that out because that would be pretty useful. So Striker, can you give us a bit of the rundown?
Well, I mean, as far as Hunden goes, at least the first kind of idea that we got that something was going wrong was when he didn't go to Cologne, because and that was also something that the team or the players didn't really want to discuss. So that was in its own right kind of fishy, right? Like we weren't sure what was happening inside the team at the time. What I was thinking was just because he's tied to Astralis, so that's probably what this revolves around, right? Maybe he's just like on his way out, maybe joining Astralis at some point soon in the future. So that's what I assumed at the time, not knowing anything about what was going on behind the scenes, obviously. And then I guess that was the first indication that something was going on. And then like the first official thing we heard, I'm just trying to work out the logistics of this, but I'm pretty sure the first official thing we heard was when Hunden himself first came out and tried to talk about the behind the scenes rumors that he was sharing strats, and there he said, that the only thing that he shared was anti-strat material. And then the day after, Heroic kind of explained a little bit more on that, saying that they launched legal proceedings against him. At the same time, I think within a couple of hours, it was pretty obvious that ESIC had already been investigating the case. And it came out pretty soon after that or a couple of weeks after that, what the actual result of the investigation was, which is the 2-year ban. So I guess that's kind of like the rough outline of how things went.
Okay, so Ian, if we jump back to that early July period, which I believe it stated that you guys were first made aware of this, was it July 6th?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
it was.
when you were made aware of this, was it Heroic reaching out?
It was initially Heroic getting in contact with me, just because, of course, by then we knew what the likely match schedule was, and then looking at getting ESL involved, which was clearly my priority, is to make sure that IEM Cologne wasn't affected, or it appeared that it initially was. That first phone call, my immediate thought was, well, hold on, these teams are likely to meet. This is the way the brackets ought to work out. So that was my first concern, and so immediately the first thing I did was to engage ESL, who Heroic had also initially engaged them. All happening on the same day, literally in the same timeline. It was a pretty intense period.
Okay, so when this was all going down, the first thing
Mm.
that was kind of established was you guys looking in to see if these documents were accessed, right? And then Uli came
Yeah.
out on Twitter making a statement saying that that they hadn't been accessed, and then
Mm.
because of that, there was no the integrity of the tournament, or at least that matchup, wasn't called into question. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, it's fair enough, but the timeline you maybe compressed a little bit. It took us a little bit of time to work that out
Okay.
for various reasons. You know, different members of staff being on holiday in remote locations. It's that time of year, right? It was pretty weird. But what it had to necessarily involve, first and foremost, was determining, for me, what information was in the shared file. Was it important? Was it a big deal? Was it potentially damaging? And then had it been accessed? And proving whether a share in a Google Drive has been accessed or used is actually surprisingly difficult. And that took some time.
Okay.
So
Good.
yeah,
What,
it took
So I
us a
guess
couple of days.
So I guess we can kind of latch on to that
Mm.
because you were just talking about kind of identifying what the documents even were in question, right?
Yeah.
So can you speak to how you went to determine whether those files were even important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So look, in that initial frenzy of information flowing backwards and forwards, as I've said, my priority, of course, was to make sure that Cologne wasn't compromised, because that was the competitive integrity element of it. I was also conscious that there was this employment-related matter between Heroic and Hunden, and obviously, I knew Hunden from our previous dealings, and so what I initially looked at was on a shared screen. I think we were using Google Meets or one of these things. Into the Heroic office was to put up the Google Drive and look. Well, what is in it? What are we talking about here? Because the fact that he'd shared it was indisputable. I mean, you know what it's like when you look at those permissions that have been given, those edit permissions. So that bit was easy. It was okay, but what are we talking about here? And so I was able to look alongside Heroic senior management on a share screen what those files were, what was in them. And it was a lot of stuff, and a bit of stuff had to be explained to me. But given that there was a high volume there, I didn't, in the end, have to look at every file because there was a lot of stuff. But I looked at enough to be able to know that in the hands of an opposing team, this would be very, very useful information.
So
okay.
how did you end up? I guess how did you end up identifying that it would be compromising to Heroic, right? Because
Mm,
obviously, like as you say, some of the stuff I'm sure was
mm,
things that you might have not understood properly, right? That's what you at least
sure.
said. And so,
Yeah.
was there somebody kind of independent that also looked at it with you, so that you kind of have
Yeah.
more of an idea of what the contents of the files are, right?
Yeah, I was very lucky. In these kind of 3 and sometimes 4-way conversations, I had the senior CSGO guys from ESL online looking at some of the same stuff as me, and involved throughout. And so I had advice from people who actually knew what they were looking at.
Okay. So is this like the league ops people at ESL, or
Yeah.
yeah? Okay. So the usual suspects. I'm sure we can all probably.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, but guys I trust, It's
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So do we want to
Can
stick with? Yeah.
can I
Go,
have
Prof.
also another question? So
Mm.
we can tie it into. I guess we know that the invite has been sent, but how was it like decided or determined that the files were not accessed by someone else?
Mm.
That part remains like a confusing part to me.
Yes. Look, I don't want to go into too much detail because it is complicated from an information technology point of view. But broadly speaking, um, at the opposing team, we were given direct access to the file history of the person with whom the files were shared. So everything that he had accessed over the period from the share through to the date that we were looking, to the time
Okay.
that we were looking, and we were given free access to that to then look through what he had accessed, which thank God he hadn't accessed anything dodgy or weird. So it was very cooperative on that side of things. And yeah, so it as best we could, it was clear that that file had not been opened, that share had not been accessed.
Okay.
I think that, like, obviously we're gonna end up everywhere, guys. I want to make this clear before we continue forward here. There's a lot of stuff here that blurs into one another and overlaps, and moral this and moral that, and a lot of these questions, right? This is going to be difficult for us all to get through here. So there is going to be a little bit of muddling, but we're going to need to try our very best, and this is for the viewer at home, to make sure that we're not confusing things. All right. So with what we're talking about here, there was a when the ban was announced, right? There was definitely some people who were a bit skeptical of because in the release itself, I should bring that one up so I can have a little bit of a look at here. The main thing that was specified was anti-strat material, right? And then a whole discussion began about that. And I don't even really want to get stuck into that anti-strat discussion right now, but the unspecified documents, right, is what we're talking about here, which is the stuff that you looked at with the help of some people from ESL. I think we don't, nobody at home who's sitting in a position like me, Striker or Prof right now, have any idea what's inside those documents. Only you and the people at ESL who looked at them do. And when Counter-Strike is such a particular game, and this is not me saying that there's no way that you could have any idea of the gravitas of what we're looking at here, but is there any thought about having an independent panel of ex-professionals or retired like people who are a little bit more plugged in? Because with even referencing people at ESL or Flashpoint or any of these people having a look at these documents, unless they're actually an ex-professional Counter-Strike mind of some variety, where are we? This is Counter-Strike specific stuff. So this is why I'm a little bit like, oh, I feel like we need some kind of independent ex-professional Counter-Strike player to be able to look at this.
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay.
I think that there's a level of information about how any team plays and prepares in respect of both the generality of individual maps, individual strats, CT, T-side stuff, and individual references to how a particular opposing team plays, that even if it's not your team, is still nevertheless useful insight into the strategy of a team. And there was clearly enough. I mean, bear in mind that in addition to me as not a Counter-Strike expert, the guys at ESL who have been intimately involved in Counter-Strike for many years, the information technology examination was done by an independent forensic firm that was brought in, and that has been shared with all the parties in the course of the civil litigation, as well as obviously I've seen it as well. But in terms of getting into the weeds of exactly what is in a file, and therefore having some experts say this would be useful to an opponent, or this would be only a little bit useful, this would be very useful, is actually, from an ESIC point of view, not the point at all. It's any information that gives the person accessing it a competitive advantage over the team about whom the information was compiled, or for whom the information was compiled, is enough. From a regulatory point of view, what you've done is unbalance the competitive integrity of that competition. For an ESIC point of view, that's enough. I get why it's not necessarily enough, from a Counter-Strike fan or Counter-Strike professional's point of view, but putting it bluntly, and I'm always as honest as I can be, that's not my problem.
But okay,
if the community wants more information, the way I regard that is, that's curiosity. I get that. As I say, that we want to know more. It doesn't mean you're entitled to know more. And I am not the owner of that information. If somebody wants to, get it out there so that one of you guys or an expert says, hey, this really was very, very useful information, then that's up to Heroic or even Hunden to say, no, it wasn't. This was just garbage. It was no use to the opposing team at all. My assessment is that it was it was useful enough to constitute a charge or constitute a threat to the integrity of not just that match, but all of IEM Cologne.
But
Okay.
isn't the severity of that information kind of important in determining how much of a breach of integrity it would be? Like, how, let's say, okay, let's say if those documents say, just as an example, for an example's case, everything that the document said was, we're going to play a little bit more fast pace at IM Cologne. I understand that's not necessarily what was in those documents, but I'm just putting that as an example, right? Which is obviously a very vague reference to how a team would play, or like you can take that any number of ways you want, and you're not going to be able to do much with that information, right? Right. So if you put that up against like very specific information on how a team reacts in certain situations and like that, it's obviously a very different conversation, right? So do you not care about like how big of an impact that information could have on a match?
To be honest, not really. It's about the integrity of the match. You know, I get that there could be a wide range here, but in my view, and backed up by the opinions I got of people who know more about Counter-Strike, this was sufficient to create an imbalance in the match between two people. So if the opposing team had accessed this information, they would have had insights that gave them a significant competitive advantage over Heroic. And to my mind, anything that gives them even a slight advantage, you know, something like finding out 20 minutes in advance of a game that a player's girlfriend has just dumped him, or that he slammed his finger in a door last night. These are all bits of inside information that are helpful, but there was a lot more to it than this. You know, this was about how Heroic play in certain circumstances on certain maps. This wasn't a, hey, let's push hard on B site on Dust 2 when we're playing against, you know, G2.
Well,
It was a hell of a lot more than that.
Well, okay,
yeah,
go
Ghost
ahead.
Striker?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's where I think the issue kind of is with the release, right? Is because what you're saying now is obviously only backed up by what Heroic put out after the fact, right? With what was released from ESIC, the reason I think that there was so much speculation is because the only thing specifically named was anti-strategy materials, and then after it says amongst other potentially sensitive and useful data, which for us
could be literally anything.
Could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So
I understand.
And that right there, like for a precedent-setting situation, which this is, right? Like this could depending on what actually came out of it. Like if you banned HUNDEN for something as basic as what Striker said, that could have massive, like it would send ripples throughout, like the way that stuff could be interacted with in the future for any Counter-Strike professional or coach or anything. Those questions coming about, like, are from a place of concern, but good concern, so that you know that it's not fucked for everybody. Now, is there a reason that those things couldn't have been expressed from ESIC as opposed to just from Heroic?
Sure. I guess more just a question of, you know, what I felt was important to convey is not what the community. I mean, I'm sure they found it important as well, but there was additional information that they wanted. And I guess if I was more of a Counter-Strike expert, I would have anticipated that and put it slightly differently. Yeah, you know, that's all easy in retrospect and 500 tweets later.
Yeah. Ghost Striker?
Yeah, I mean, with regards to that, obviously, like some sort of information on what those documents involved came out of Heroic. At least that's what they're saying, right? And I'm just curious about in what position you are in regards to kind of verifying information that comes out after the fact, right? Can you actually say whether what Heroic stated was in those documents and that statement that they put out like the next day or maybe a couple of days later was actually true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, that's what we looked at on the 6th and 7th when we were, you know, in our various Google Meets sharing screens, looking into the drive. Is I needed to understand at a basic level. I'm happy to concede, but I needed to understand what I was looking at, because, you know, you can imagine there's a lot of video material, and to me that's just like watching Counter-Strike. It doesn't mean I'm not in the depths of that. It was much more the documents. What are they saying? What who's written this? What's in there? So I had to ask a lot of questions. And so, you know, when I read the Heroic release, to me that was perfectly accurate, because that's what I saw when we were reviewing these documents in the early days.
Okay. The thing
I mean,
that
just to
Yeah.
kind of like read out some of what was said in that
Mm.
press release from Heroic, just so people are kind of like in the know of what we're talking about here, right? So it says the content of the documents reveals what our team look for, how we think, and how we outplay our opponents, both in various map settings and sides in the
Mm.
game. It describes our philosophies in specific scenarios, such as mid-round calls, when X and Y happens, how we want to abuse and manipulate rotations. In aggregate, this provides a lot of information about how we think as a team. The documents cover far more than where opponents like to stand and what setups they use. They
Yeah.
give detailed instruction on how we act versus set teams, how we want to play versus specific smokes, and what exactly we look for in our preparation, which can be manipulated in the wrong hands, is what they're saying.
Sure. Yeah.
I
And I mean, look, let me say, firstly, this was never my information to put in the public domain. And I'm super conscious that there's this whole separate civil litigation thing going on that really I've never wanted to be involved in. It's got nothing to do with ESIC. That's a Danish law issue, but it's nevertheless sensitive, you know. So ESIC coming out saying, I saw this, 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 and this detail, you know, I don't know to what extent it jeopardizes that, but more importantly, I didn't feel it was necessary to do that. But to answer the question here is, whilst I can't attest to every single point that you've made in Heroic's thing there, the generality of what's been said there is entirely accurate. That is what I was looking at when I was in those meetings.
Okay. Are you in a position to talk about how much we're talking in terms of documents? Because when someone hears documents, right, there's some sensitive documents. Are we talking like 3 pages? Are we talking hundreds of pages? Like what are we talking here?
Look, there were a large number of files, not quite 200, but a lot of files. So you can imagine I didn't open and look at all of them. I went through a sample of them. Some contained, you know, a couple of short videos and then a document of sort of like a Google document or a Word document. Some of them were long. You know, I scrolled through or had them scroll through on the screen, some of them. But to say that in total we're talking, I don't know whether it was 200 pages or 2,000, I honestly wouldn't be able to say, because I didn't open half the files. I saw enough to make my decision.
Okay. So but I think that's key, because like that's a lot of data to go through, right? Like I think
It's
that's
not
the
one
point here.
file.
And it wasn't, there was no value to ESIC or IAM Cologne, or in fact any of the parties, for me to spend hours and hours reading that stuff. I saw enough to know that this was sufficient to create a threat.
Okay.
And you know, the match was upcoming. Bear in mind, this match hadn't occurred yet, and so it was kind of, what are we going to do about this in terms of the match? Not
So
what are we going to do about Hunden? That was much later. We worried about, you know, the stuff that's come out. At the time, it was, are we facing, you know, a genuine problem here?
So is this in essence why Hunden wasn't questioned about this, and about kind of like what his thought was on how these documents were important, and just generally not being able to present his defense?
Yeah, look, I'll address that as a separate thing, right? So initially, as I've said, I was dealing with the IM Cologne issue. Once we'd made a determination on that, obviously the game proceeded and so on. In terms of Hunden's contention, which he's made public, is that, you know, he hasn't been heard. For me, there were 2 facts, right? The fact is that it had been shared, that we took the view that it was sufficiently sensitive. And the second thing is that he then tweeted that I shared these files, and made sort of I guess an excuse. I guess I'd call it that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It was kind of, I was just sharing some basic stuff as part of the normal course of work. I wasn't trying to cheat. Well, you know, fine. But I took that tweet as an admission. Since we decided on the charge and notified him of the charge, and at least, what was it, a week or 10 days before the public statement, I can't remember the precise timing, he has constantly just said, I haven't been heard. And I've kept constantly saying, I'm listening. What have you got to say? You know, I personally, I find it hard to even imagine what the defense to this could be. But he's had multiple opportunities to tell me what that might be. But instead, what I've had is a bunch of complaints about procedures and notification, and I haven't been heard. And I'm saying, I'm listening, tell me, talk to me. But nothing of substance has come forward. And that's all I've got to say about it. So I'm not satisfied that he hasn't been given an opportunity to speak. He has. We've been in correspondence since the 19th of August. It's now 31st of August, and I still haven't heard a single point of substance that in any way justifies this action.
Okay.
Do we want to go down that rabbit hole now, Strike, or do we want to? Yeah, Prof?
Maybe just a bit more as to like HUNDEN's timeline. I guess what he also lined out is that he was first that it was decided that he was guilty, and then he was approached, right? So
Yes.
I don't know how much difference that makes in the whole thing, but at the same time, should there be maybe a correspondence with him before he was found guilty? And let's just say, I can imagine like put a random tinfoil hat on how this happened, and in some way, either maybe someone else accessed his Google account and then shared it from his account, and then
Classic.
Maybe that happened. Maybe someone,
maybe
someone from Astralis. I'm just imagining this is not what what happened.
I get it. Yeah,
and he admitted to sharing it, right? Or maybe someone from Astralis asked for it, and there is like, I just said Astralis. Oh no, but you know what I'm trying to say. So
I do.
Yeah.
And
so
look,
why wasn't there a need to talk to him and maybe get some additional information about this situation?
To be honest, that would be what you've outlined there is a fairly normal procedure in terms of this kind of investigation, of course, which is that I would have a certain level of information, and in my head I'd be going like, well, maybe there's a reason, maybe there's a defense here, and I would invite somebody saying, look, I'm planning to charge you on this, but before I do that, have you got anything to say? But what I had here was the offense had occurred, and so the sort of excuses you've raised, which are a possibility, I mean, of a remote one, but it's a possible. Normally, I would have gone, hey, what have you got to say about this? But unfortunately for him, he went public with this before it was public. Now, I know there was rumors and there was chatting, but as soon as I saw that, I shared this material. For me, the matter is over. The guilt is established. And so, but, on the off chance that there is some kind of, I don't know, mistake, excuse, the sort of thing you've outlined, we have an independent appeals procedure, which it was offered in that very first contact, is to say, look, in effect, here's a plea bargain. You accept my sanction and guilt, or you appeal. I then, I'll prosecute the case, you appeal, and you take your chances with the appeal panel, but you're taking your chances with them because they can up the sanction, like your risk on costs. It's a much more difficult procedure, and what are your chances of winning? And we'll see. Look, he's still got time to appeal. He may appeal. That procedure is open to him. I'm just saying that from the date of notifying him till now, I've yet to hear anything that might constitute a defense along, whether it's along the lines you've outlined or anything going, this was okay. It wasn't an offense because X, Y, and Z.
But was this also why you ended up pushing like the original date of the announcement? I think it was supposed to be somewhere like on the 22nd, or I don't remember exactly
right?
the
and
date.
then it moves it to the 27th.
That's
like exactly why, because we were contacted on his behalf by his lawyers saying, this is wrong, that's wrong, and we said, okay, here's our answers to it, but please tell us, talk to us. Long before you actually, and we make this explicit in our notice of charge letters, before you follow a formal appeal procedure, we are open to hearing and discussing these things. You guys know, and hopefully it comes. I'm not one of these guys who's going to stick as a matter of principle to a procedure where there's a solution to be reached. If he's got something to say, I'm open to hear it. And I've made that clear in the letter to his lawyers, in the notice of charge. I've got an open mind, right? I know that there are weird things that can happen, like somebody accessed my Google Drive and sent all these files to Astralis. I'm not a closed book on these things, but nothing has come forward. Nothing.
Because we have here on the 25th of August, Hunden did an interview with TV2. He's actually done, I think it's like a 3-part interview, right? And I got the quote here.
Now.
4 now? Okay.
As of yesterday, 4, yeah.
I'm deeply saddened that they, ESIC, chose not to hear me out in this case, since I believe it's a huge case, Hunden says. I've never been heard in this specific case. The only thing ESIC has done is to threaten me by saying that if I choose to appeal the verdict, I'll be given a 5-year ban instead. You just explained that he has the option to appeal, but if the appeals process, they come down on him harder, they come down on him harder, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like it's a pretty standard thing.
This is part of the disingenuous process. Is we had a private process writing to him saying, here we go, appeals process. But he's insisted on going public first, of course, with the tweet, but now this whole series of talks to TV. I can't understand what he's trying to achieve by that. There's no court of public opinion, or maybe there is, but it's irrelevant to me, right? To ESIC, to the regulatory breach that we're talking about here. So what he says is that I threatened him with a 5-year ban. I did not. I have no control over the 5-year ban. What I said to him is I'd ask for a 5-year ban. If he appeals, I'm going to ask them to hammer him. But it's not my decision. I don't get to hand out those procedures. That's a panel of experts and lawyers but yeah, of course, if he's going to appeal, he's going to piss me off. I'm going to ask for a higher sentence, but I can't give him one.
Can you just explain in short that appeal process? Like who are the people that would run that? How are they decided? How does that work? Because we also had appeals happen already, right? And some of them successfully. I think Tokyo is here in chat. One of the guys that got cleared from the coaching situation. So can you tell me how that happens?
So we have a chairman of an independent panel of I think there's 6 or 8 people on the panel. I try not to interfere with this panel at all, because I don't want anybody saying that I've influenced them or that I have influence over them. They have an independent chairman, a guy called Kevin Carpenter, who's an integrity expert lawyer, lecturer, and a guy in private practice, been in sports discipline integrity matters for many, many years, English-based. And then the panel is people with either an esports or sports disciplinary background. So, for example, Anna Baumann, who is Rec Global and ran the Rogue League of Legends team for a number of years, who's an expert lawyer. James, oh God, sorry, and I'm going to start naming these guys, but they're like lawyers from football, lawyers and people from esports, independent of me. And the way it works is if somebody wants to appeal, there's a process. It's not a difficult process. They write to Kevin saying the grounds of my appeal are X, Y, and Z, and he then liaises with them, and I become, or ESIC effectively becomes, the prosecutor. So this becomes then my case to persuade the panel that the guy is guilty or that the sanction is justified. His job is to say, I'm not guilty, or I am guilty, but the sanction is too high, it's unreasonable, or it's whatever. And then the panel go away and they have their chat and they come back with a decision. And as you've mentioned, in a couple of the coach bug cases, those appeals were successful or partially successful. And I know, just to round that off, there's been a complaint that there's a fee to make this appeal, right? It's £250. So first of all, it's nothing compared to the cost of running these things. I mean, the cost to ESIC of these appeals is high, but it's not our money. The money doesn't come to ESIC. It goes to the disciplinary panel. These guys don't come cheap, and neither should they. They're not free. And so my reasoning in agreeing that they can charge this deposit is 2 things. Firstly, I don't want frivolous appeals. And if you make it free, guys will just appeal. Any old garbage, you'll just come forward. because there's no cost. So there has to be a small hurdle. The second thing is that there are costs, and the appeal panel can award costs against a losing party. But what are the chances of us recovering those costs, right? So at least we got 250 quid of what could be 2, 5, 10, 15,000 pounds. And finally, where people genuinely can't afford it, we have waived that fee by agreement with the disciplinary panel. And on one occasion, we've actually agreed as ESIC to pay that deposit so that the person could appeal, because his personal circumstances meant that he couldn't come up with 250 quid. We're not trying to stop people appealing. We're trying to stop bogus and shitty appeals. That's what I'm trying to stop.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me overall. I think answers a lot of questions that people had about the appeal process.
I think almost a super basic one, and probably the dumbest question I could ask right here, Ian. But in this specific case, and I saw people in chat asking this question because our live viewers, they're very lively. Was why is ESIC even involved in this?
Right.
Like, that seems like I'm going to ask on behalf of all the plebs out there.
Yeah. Hey, I wish we weren't. I really wish we weren't. We're involved because of the timing of this incident. If this had happened at more or less any other time, it'd been nothing to do with us. It would be purely a dispute between Heroic and Hunden. This happened days before IEM Cologne. The integrity of our member events is absolutely key to ESIC. It's the most important thing we do, is to make sure that for ESL, Blast, WePlay, UMG, all of our members, that their events occur with the highest level of competitive integrity. And so, yeah, timing, man. Timing is everything.
Wow.
I still cannot get my head around whatever Hunden's reasoning rationale was, whatever it was. Why then? Why?
I
I
have
don't understand it.
I have a question now. I don't know if we can maybe kind of wrap this up with this, but this is obviously like a precedent that has been set. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that this is, especially the punishment is happening because it happened so closely to an event. But this opens kind of a rabbit hole in terms of what can influence competitive integrity when players move or coaches move from one team to another.
Sure.
One thing is sending a Google Drive invite link, which is I still don't believe that someone actually did this. Like I'm still mystified as to why you would actually go into Google Drive and say this email at a competitive like enemy in my group at the upcoming event .gg send. I don't understand that, but there are
Welcome to the club.
ways. There are 1,000 other ways that you could do this without anyone finding out. You can literally just
Correct.
download these documents, put it on a USB, and hand it over to the person. Especially if you're in the same country, which maybe in this case they were. Which all of the information that we have is that it is Astralis and that it is VNG from their technically head of talent and assistant coach at Astralis. Right. This is the rumor that's flying around. I've heard it. We've all heard it. So that's what's going on. So there are 1,000 ways you can do this. And what does this actually mean for the future? Like, how are we going to prosecute these cases? Let's say Kerrigan leaves FaZe to join G2. Who's going to stop him to like first just have all of this data, which I think in the past coaches did take with themselves most of the time. And even if they don't have the document, they have that in their mind, right? So if someone changes a team one day before a tournament, you know all of the shit that's going down. How do we stop this, and what does this mean?
Yeah, look, I realize I never anticipated this kind of situation arising, hence having to rely on parts of the code of conduct that are like catch-alls, things that bring the game or ESL or ESIC or the esports into disrepute, because you can't think of every idiot scenario that arises in terms of integrity breaches. People constantly surprise you, which is why you have catch-alls in codes. It's the same in traditional sport. And you're right. There are a million ways of transferring this information without it being traceable or auditable. But to me, I guess I want to make 2 points here, is that I think that what I learned about, or at least what was alleged about the way in which coaches liaise around tactics, anti-strat, this type of stuff does cause me concern, which is why I made a special comment about it in my release. I think it's unprofessional. I think that it comes from a background of trying to advance your career instead of realizing that you owe a fiduciary duty to the team that's employing you. But look, that I realize that's quite a nebulous point. To answer your question more directly, there needs to be a tie-up here between the way in which transfers occur and the timing of transfers and the way in which teams react to transfers. Because you're right, if somebody transfers shortly before a tournament, either a player or a coach, then as the organization who has released that player or coach to be transferred, you've got to make damn sure you protect your position, knowing full well that a great deal of information is in that coach or player's head that could be used against you. So, allowing that sort of situation to arise shortly before a major tournament is frankly idiotic. And you've got to take measures to address that. From an ESIC perspective, I hope this sort of situation never arises again, obviously. But basically, my message to the professional community here, whether coaches or players, is be careful about what constitutes inside information and how that's used. Because if a player knowingly moves from team A to team B, team A has to know that he's got all this stuff in his head and he could use it against you. That isn't the situation here. Hunden had not yet transferred to the other team. He was still an employee and a coach of Heroic. And he took information from Heroic and gave it to an opposing team. That is not the same as me moving. If Hunden had moved 4 days before the tournament from Heroic to the other team, that's the team's problem. That's not my problem, right? Yes, it affects competitive integrity, but everybody knows it does. This was kind of secret.
Okay.
And that's what bugs me about this. Not, I think it's up to teams and orgs to sort out their moves between themselves and the impact of those moves. This guy hadn't moved yet. He was still an employee of Heroic, and he owed a duty to Heroic. And so, whether he breached that duty is a matter for the Danish courts. My problem is that if he breached, never mind. I don't care whether he breached employment terms or duties or anything. He transferred competitively sensitive information in advance of IEM Cologne. That's enough for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was generally curious about how this compares, just because of obviously there's something that he came out with relatively recently about his handing in his resignation, which apparently happened at some point before Cologne, and at that point he had already not been working with the team, but he also said that would have come into effect on the 31st of July, which for people who aren't, it's still 2 weeks after Cologne or something like that.
Yeah.
So what you're just to kind of confirm what you're saying, that he was still under employment technically.
Yes.
He tried to get out ahead of it, right? Like that's why ESIC came out and said something, because I'm just looking at my timeline here. On the 28th of July, Hunden comes out and says, I'm not extending my contract with Heroic, right? And that's where then he came out and addressed the rumors. He was still going to be fucked either way, right? Like he was, but he just got out there, and it seems like with what you're saying, that became the admission of guilt. He fucked himself more by trying to get out ahead of it. And it like the amount of different scenarios that I have built in my mind of what this guy could possibly have been thinking, and I still can't get to the bottom of it. Okay. Let's focus it. Do we want to focus in on the ban length, guys, or do we think we already have a good understanding why?
I think that's kind of where we should kind of round things off with the ban lengths, because
you guys
that's
want to hear
also
one
something that people are interested. Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are curious about certain specifics, and some of it I know you've like, there was a Deserto article that was released maybe like an hour ago where some of this was clarified, but just so we have everything rounded off. Obviously, a lot of people are wondering about what contributed to the length that was chosen for Hunden. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, not the easiest thing in the world to determine, because ultimately we don't have a precedent for this. And so what I was looking at was the seriousness of a threat to the competitive integrity of a member event. And I regard this as a serious threat. And we will never compromise on something like this. So the length of any ban serves, in my mind, two purposes. The first is it's got to be appropriate or proportionate punishment to the offense. And the second is it's got to act as a deterrent to future conduct of a similar nature. And so, whilst I had a wide range of potential sanctions at my disposal, I felt that 2 years was appropriate because ultimately it's my decision, right? I did look at other sports examples. They're not massively helpful. I did a trawl of cases like the McLaren Formula One case from a few years ago where the Ferrari information was said. I looked at the Bloodgate case in rugby. I looked at, various kind of scenarios, but I have to say there wasn't much particularly helpful. And so my gut instinct was that the proportionate response was a serious ban because I regarded it as a serious potential breach of integrity. The fact that it didn't actually materialize was not in Hunden's control. It was the opposing team could have opened and used that information, shared it wherever they like. Once he pressed send on that email, he lost control of that information. And that was at best reckless beyond my imagination. I still can't get my head around it. Just as Chad has said, it's like what was going on here. But I do regard it as a very serious, and we take that element of our work, of our service to our members, very, very seriously.
I think you're bringing up, unless we want to dig in a little bit more on this length, do we want to ask questions about this? Because obviously it's hard with the precedent setting stuff, right? And it's also hard when we don't know the exact information shared. So it's like,
sure,
we don't even know where the goalposts are. We're just trying to, yeah.
I guess one way or one thing I could ask about this is how much was the fact that there was no precedent to this? How much did that increase the length, right? Like what would this look like if this had happened before?
It doesn't increase the length. It just makes it difficult to determine the length. I didn't kind of think, well, this 1 year is appropriate, but because this has never happened before, I'm going to add a year. It isn't that sort of process. Right. I'm not saying that there's a science to it, but that is not a factor for me.
Okay, because like there were references to this being like a precedent-setting sanction, essentially, which obviously could mean that you also increased it because there was no precedent, and just to make sure that you deter other people from doing it in the future. So I just wanted to make that clarify that. I guess another thing would just be the previous offense, because like a lot of people obviously don't really, and I have to say I'm in that camp as well, don't really understand how this thing, which is essentially, first of all, it didn't materialize, which is a big factor, and then the second would be that it was an indirect, I guess, threat to integrity, not a direct one, because obviously teams could maybe work with like outdated information, like the team that he shared these documents with could work with outdated information. So maybe Heroic would have changed things in the meantime because they learned about this. So like obviously it's not a direct impact that sharing these documents had on the result of a match, especially if that match never really took place in the first place, right? So how do you compare that against, cheating bans which were given to people who directly, affected the result of a match by, cheating in however many rounds happened?
Sure. And look, our cheating bans, the longest one has been 5 years, which was forsaken on I think on the Optic India case. I mean, this is going back a couple of years, but obviously at the top end, you've got these bans even for the coach bug ones where there was obvious and sustained exploitation of the coach bug that guys ended up with 5-year bans. So I don't really, I understand your point, but I don't draw a distinction, and neither does the law, between attempted murder and murder.
I mean, isn't the length different though? Yeah. If you only have attempted murder and murder, isn't that like half the sentence for attempts?
Not necessarily at all. I mean, there are a million factors, and I don't want to get down in the weeds in that because it depends on whether the person you tried to kill was badly injured or is maimed, or whether you never even got close to injuring the person. What I mean here is that the fact that it could have affected, the fact that it didn't, is not relevant to the sanction. It's the seriousness of the conduct. It's the seriousness at the moment of pressing send, not what are the consequences afterwards, because Hunden had no control over those consequences. The fact that they didn't occur actually was as a result of our and ESL and Heroic's proactive measures to stop it happening, that it didn't occur, because the person who received those could have opened them at any time. The fact that he hadn't by I think it was the 8th of July is just bloody good luck.
So let's say that the other person did open it, and maybe you found out after the event, and maybe the other person used it in the matches. That wouldn't change anything in Hunden's ban. He'd still get 2 years, right?
Yeah, no, it wouldn't have made any difference to his ban. It would have opened another can of worms, but
Yeah, of course.
his ban would have been the same. Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Well, I think the most basic level of what Strike is saying with all of this and bringing up as this point is Hunden got, what was it, 12 months reduced to 8, right? Because he assisted.
That's right.
For actually using a bug in the game to do something that just the Counter-Strike guys out there watching would consider much more detrimental than what we're talking about here, which he's received a 2-year ban for something that wasn't access. So you've already iterated the fact that it's because of what could have spiraled out of control because of that, but it's still the disparity between those two, just when they hit you in the face. Can you see why that's hard for people to maybe understand?
Yeah. Oh, look, I do understand, but as we explained, I think either to Deserto or in our release, I'm kind of losing track of who we said
so
what
much, yeah.
But not what we said. And look, from my point of view, the coach bug, whilst again, we were very, very clear at that stage that we weren't saying that the guys actually cheated using it. We're saying that they used it. And I know that that's a whole different story in light of those TV2 revelations as well, is that Hunden was one of 37 guys fitting into a sanctions matrix that had to make sense for that case. They're not comparable, right? You understand that it was how many times he accessed, in what circumstances, plus the reduction, alongside 36 other guys that had to work proportionately in a sanctions matrix. It wasn't me deciding Hunden gets 12 months, Regin gets 5. We didn't jump around arbitrarily assigning sanctions to these guys. So whilst I understand why people want to kind of compare the two things, they are not comparable.
I guess like one thing that also from our point of view, people that were in the coach bug were cheating, but what you explained also on the last show is that you don't really think about as cheating because you can't confirm that they actually use the information to cheat, right? We only know that they were in the coach bug and that they didn't exit the coach bug, but they were there, and they were like, it was in a way, the way you look at it is very similar to the Hunden case, where there's this information that could be used that he shared, and then whether it was used or not, in this case we know like the investigation proved that it wasn't used, but
That's
in the coach cam we don't know if it's used or not, and then we can talk about the heroic player potential involvement in a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay.
These are some of the things that when you write it down, you can't understand it unless you're in the conversation and actually trying to like have a back and forth. I mean,
it's hard to know what people are going to be interested in, to be honest. I mean, I tried to give as much information as I felt was necessary, but this is why we do these interviews. I'm not trying to hide anything. I want people to understand what we're doing, but equally, when we write a statement, I could write 12 pages. It's hard to know. I don't want to. I do have a life, sort of.
Occasionally. All right. So
every now and again.
do we have any like real pressing questions here specific to Hunden, Striker, or Prof? I'm sure there's a lot that we are overlooking here, but maybe they'll prick up when we start talking a little bit more about the other party involved. And
I think we talk about that unless Striker has something else.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so we all know, right, at this point, and when I say we all know, what was in another one of these TV2 interviews, let me read it. It didn't translate very well, but I'll read it anyway. Let me find it. Scrolling. TV2 Sport can now learn, I think it's meant to translate to has now learnt, that it was an employer of the Danish organization Astralis, the dog, that's my favorite part about all this, sent material to. However, according to the decision of ESIC, the shared material has not been opened by the recipient. Okay, so we covered that, but this is pointing out that it's Astralis, right? And is anything going to happen to Astralis? Is anything going to be investigated? Like, was that a part of their conversation? Hey, send us the heroic documents. Like, is anything like that going to be investigated?
Only if, as a result of the civil case running between Heroic and Hunden, which involves the other team to some extent, reveals information that says to me as commissioner, you need to investigate this. Because look, I don't know how long this is going to take, but there was a very public seizure of all sorts of documentation and data that is now the subject of the civil litigation. I'm not involved in that. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I would certainly say that if information arises that shows that there is an integrity issue related to IEM Cologne or another ESIC member event, then obviously we'll investigate it. But at the moment, there's nothing to investigate.
Okay.
Let me be the pleb in chat for a second and ask: is there not enough, like, a reasonable doubt from what we have, the information we have so far, that obviously something was shared to a member of Astralis, not necessarily a player, but someone that works for Astralis, that ESIC shouldn't go to Astralis and say, okay, you actually know who the member is as well, that you should just have a, maybe not interrogation, maybe isn't the real word, but ask him, like, what happened? Can you please explain what happened? So then you have
let me just say
his version of the thing.
Of course, that's exactly what we've done.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And from the information you have from that conversation, like, there wasn't a reason to investigate further.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. But you won't disclose what those reasons are, because that is what everyone wants to know, like, what the fuck were they talking about when he sent these documents? Because you don't just go like, hey, or just like send an empty email. They had to have some sort of a conversation. Right?
I'm as curious as you are about that. And as I say, if more clarification arises from the examination of documents and data that are subject to the civil case, and somebody shares that with me, when we might find some answers, but on what was available, what could be proven, and what people have said to me in good faith, there's no problem. So I'm not saying there's no problem. I'm saying that I couldn't determine that there was a problem. So as things stand, there is no.
Oh, have we lost?
Here we go.
Here we go. So good. Oh, he's back. Is he back?
Oh, well,
you're back. You're back. I think we've got him.
Sorry, I didn't know I disappeared. I'm still here.
Yeah, nice. All right. I think we got the tail end of that. What did we miss? Did anyone catch Prof Striker? What did we miss right there?
I didn't catch the end of that, so I'm not. I'm not sure what was said because it's just cut off mid-sentence.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry, I'm just confirming that on everything that is known, there is no problem with the other team.
Okay.
From an ESIC point of view, or from any other, as far as I know.
Yet.
So the implication is, just let
maybe,
me.
Who knows?
Implication is that Hunden just sent this, that he wasn't asked by the other side to send these kind of documents. That's what you're saying.
I have absolutely no reason to believe he was asked to send those documents.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the thing. We'll do the wild speculation a little bit later when Ian's not here, so that we can go down the rabbit holes of
We
all
can do that,
that.
but that's just going to take too much time.
Exactly.
And we have limited time with Ian,
Yeah.
so we want to use that, and then later
We'll do the speculation.
The tin forecast is ready, so don't worry about it.
Okay, so we've covered off the Astralis stuff, right? Which is the other party confirmed by TV2, so put on them. Now the other part, we're going to get into the fun stuff now, guys. We're going to get into the real, which is probably going to be very similar answers to what we just had with that little topic. But the next part is HUNDEN saying that players of the team at the time, which was Cadian, Stown, Tessus, Nico, and Borup, some of them.
Actually, can I just ask one question as well?
Okay.
Just one quick question. So if this Astralis member had this email shared to him, like this, not the email, but the files shared through an email, wasn't he the person that should report that to ESIC? Otherwise, he would just be implicated. Like, did he report that immediately to ESIC? How did that happen?
Ooh.
That's a very good question. The circumstances and timing of this were really, really interesting. So without giving... Right, so what can I say here? For the initial period, the person involved didn't even have access to his computer. He was on holiday in a foreign country.
Okay.
And we actually, via the opposing team and with their cooperation, had to track him down and engage him and disturb him on his holiday to start liaising in terms of looking at his file access records and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, that's
so it. Okay.
So it was determined whether, like, he was aware that this was happening. I guess that he wasn't aware that this was even happening.
Yeah, I can't comment on that because I don't know what he was aware of or not aware of, but there's nothing to suggest, to go back to the previous question, I guess what's relevant, that anybody had asked for HUNDEN to send this information. I'd be stunned if it turned out that was the case.
Okay. Does that suffice, bro?
Okay, yeah.
You want to give another angle?
No, it's I'm done for now.
Okay,
please.
all right. The next piece is about HUNDEN implicating potential other members of Heroic in the coach bug scandal, right? So for everybody playing at home, just for you guys who are ready to be frothing at the mouth, remove yourself from the document sharing part, and we're going to go back to the coach bug part. All right, guys? Right? This is very important. We keep these distinctions. So now, HUNDEN, at the time that this happened back in September of last year, I believe it was. Let me bring up my bloody timeline here again.
End of August, September last year. Yeah.
He specifically said, right, and I don't have the quote right here because I'm scrolling to find it, but he said that Heroic first 3 teams announced. It basically, he came out and said that he was fully responsible for this and the players had nothing to do with it, right? That it was him and him alone. And he made that in a public statement back then, right? And then he also worked with ESIC and the investigation, which got his ban reduced from 12 months down to 8 months. So he had 4 months chopped off that, right?
Yes.
He said, oh, here we go. I felt remorse for my decision, and I still do, but realized that I could never take back my actions. Therefore, I decided to contact Michal Slavinsky to also explain the bug. I knew it had been, yeah, okay. So he's admitted guilt back then, right? Now,
yes,
right? We've already established that HUNDEN is a cheater and a liar, but now he has come out and he has said that the players knew. That there's some of them who were complicit and they knew about this at the time. Now, you've spoken to TV2. I have this written here as well. I want to make sure I get this out.
Not spoken to. I wrote to them because I go on Danish TV with my 1 word of Danish.
That's all right. They're bloody smart over there, aren't they? Well, maybe everybody but HUNDEN. So possibly it gives reason that this is when you were asked about the situation, right? And this is to do with the documents that Pimp has verified to some degree. Possibly it gives reason to look at the case again, but it will require that I see the evidence that Jacob Pimp Vinicki has gained insight into and expressed his opinion about before I can decide whether an investigation can or should reopen.
Sure.
There was no concrete evidence available about the players' involvement in the cheating and exploitation of the coach bug on any of the teams involved. And at the time, we did not have the resources to proactively catch up. If we had been introduced to it, then it would have then we would have looked at it just as we would do now, right?
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of questions around this. First of all, there's a lot of people whose sentiment is the players had to have known, right? And you answered
Sure.
this last time round. Do you mind doing
Yeah.
it again for us?
Yeah, and look, I completely get that because I'm human too, and you look at these circumstances and think how in some of the cases, certainly the more blatant ones, how could the players not have known? But that's not that's in no way grounds for prosecution of anyone for anything. It's speculation. So until there's evidence, until somebody can show me, I that's all I can look at, and I can't mount an investigation of thin air, which is what we had.
He's come out, Hunden, by the way. This is in the same part of the interview. Maybe you've seen this, and said, "I'm glad Ian Smith chooses to deal with evidence rather than speculation in this case. It is time for the cards to finally come to the table, and for both ESIC and the rest of the outside world to gain insight into the matter."
Mm.
So basically, Hunden is saying he's going to provide this evidence to you. With that evidence, then you go, well, that's what I'm taking from this, right? I don't know if Prof and Striker are reading into this any differently. Like, he's come out, he said that these players were complicit. He's saying that he has evidence. Pimp has apparently seen said evidence, and that's going to be presented to you. And you're saying, okay, then ESIC's going to investigate. Like, what are we meant to do with this, boys? I feel I'm moving away from the line of questioning here because there's not a question I can ask Ian about this. What are we meant to ask him regarding this?
Good question. Good question. Like,
yeah.
Number one, fucking Hunden. What the fuck is this whole TV thing? Like, what is this? Why is no one having these details, this information provided to them by now? No one knows. No one knows. But we can ask if some details are provided, what kind of details would you need in order to start this investigation? What did you need from Hunden to have reasonable grounds to start investigating the heroic players?
I mean, that's a really good question because TeamSpeak recordings, some kind of in-game chat, something where instructions are being passed that link between what camera angle he had at the time, and obviously we've got that evidence, and what instructions were being given to the team. Anything else to me would just be speculation because you've got a good in-game leader there making decisions on behalf of the players in the moment. Unless the coach is intervening in real time, and there's evidence of that, what could we know? It's very hard to know. I don't know what Pimp's looked at. So
it'd be nice if you could share that information with the rest of us.
Sure, it would be nice. Yeah. I mean, look, I know the public want to know whether it's of value for them to know. I don't know that this is not a case for ESIC in terms of the court of public opinion again. I know that that's a valid court, but it's not my court. And so I need evidence, and I can't even begin to speculate on what that might actually look like. I don't know. But I'll look at whatever somebody sends me, and I'll make a decision about whether or not it's enough to sustain a prosecution of a player or players if they were cheating or if they were complicit in cheating. Because the other thing, that strikes me as pretty obvious about this is, let's say you don't know your coach is in the bug, right? You don't know what he's looking at because you're busy playing the damn game, right? That's where all your focus is. So unless he's saying to you, hey guys, I've got this awesome view from this point on the map, and I can see this player are guarding B side or A, whatever information. If the guy's just telling you what to do, are you not, as a player, entitled to just think, well, it's the coach, it's his job to tell us what to do? You don't know what he's looking at. So if he's staring at A and saying, hey guys, I think they're going to rush A, come over here. How do you know where he's getting that information from?
But let's say if we have also some speculation, if we have some logs which say like, oh, Hunden, I'm going to use this bug. We know this bug,
Sure.
blah, blah. Let's save it for a good game. Then there's talk about, oh, Astralis is coming up, there are rivals, let's use it for this game finally, and they say, oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that where does that put them? And is there also a difference between the players just knowing and the players actually being complicit, right? Maybe they, let's say, if there was a way to trigger the coach bug, which was the coach needs to come in first, right? So let's say if a player came into the server but then disconnected, then the coach connected so he could engage the bug, right? Does that make them more complicit? And also, what does that mean in terms of a ban? Because this is now legit cheating. Now we know it's cheating. Now we know don't just know it's a coach bug, right? So does HUNDEN's ban get extended? How long would the players get banned? Like, how does this work?
Guys, this is a rabbit hole that we could go down all day. I don't know until I get the evidence.
Okay.
I don't know.
But I mean, let's make this
1,000 possibilities here.
Let's make this distinction then, at least, and see how that compares. Because let's say the players only know that he was in the bug, but there's no evidence showing that he told them anything that would be pertaining to the match, right? Like, let's just say that they're aware of the bug, him being in the bug, but no evidence of any information being passed on one way or the other. Does that make any sort of difference to if they were actually cheating?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Because that's what it's like. The thing is, this is where it's all gonna get super messy, right? Like, this is where
Yen is pulling a valve right now. He just doesn't want to say something and then later have
you
different
guys,
information
I'll
and then have to go back on it.
into a corner here, and then someone will drag up a video going, "Hey, you said that if this happens and these words are used, that this." And it's like, no, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Genuinely, I'm not trying to be a dickhead. I'm just saying I don't know. And until I've got this stuff in front of me and I can make a reasoned decision about whether there's been an offense under one of our codes and what to do about it, I just don't know.
Okay.
All at the moment I've got is a guy who either lied to me a year ago or is lying now.
Either way, fuck him.
Just one more thing. Just an interesting thing about this whole heroic situation. Back in the day when they said that the players weren't involved, they also mentioned there being a TeamSpeak recording that they internally reviewed. And now with this HUNDEN claim coming out, being true or not, maybe this gives us enough reason to revisit that. Is this a thing that ESIC can go out and ask Heroic for, and then have some kind of independent people, like you did with the ESL case, to look at?
I mean, look, I guess that's possible. It goes against my instincts to proactively follow the lashings out of a liar on TV. It's not, if he's got proof, send it to me. It's not my job to go and find it because of something that he said on TV. I bear in mind, guys, and I know it's not directly related, but I get about 3 accusations from members of the public a week of match fixing in various matches, and in 95% of those cases, it's a disgruntled punter who lost a bet. And I feel like I'm in that ballpark right now.
Yeah, but in terms of this, for how I look at it, Heroic giving this to you and having someone independent look at it, and maybe to a degree clearing their name from the player's perspective, that would be in Heroic's interest.
Be a wise decision.
But it will also be in the interest. It would be in the interest of the game, right? You say this is not your job to seek out things, but the way maybe this is the issue, because a lot of people look at ESIC as the protector of CSGO integrity, but your job is actually to protect the integrity of the tournaments that you work for, right? That is your job, not full CS.
I mean, I do take it broader than that. I do see our job is to protect esports and the Counter-Strike scene. I absolutely do. We exist for our members, but we also exist for the ecosystem. I don't want to be exclusive. So when I say I'm not going to proactively do it, if I hear genuine speculation about an integrity threat, if we have the resources, we would proactively follow that. We do. I mean, we do a lot of work on non-member tournaments where we hear that there might be a fix or some kind of breach, and we cooperate with that TO, even if they're not a member. I think my resistance here is more to do with the specifics of a disgruntled coach who's been backed into a corner lashing out. I don't think that's a basis to begin an investigation. I don't disagree with you, but to me, there are things Heroic might be able to do, not do, but that's Heroic's decision. It's not my job. I don't see it as my job to go, hey, this liar has lashed out saying players know something. I say, oh, I better go and track down whether he's telling the truth in this instance. I don't see that as my job. If one of you guys said, hey, I've got proof that this team probably cheated in these circumstances, I would take that seriously. I'm finding it hard to take this seriously just because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. The thing is, it's a similar mindset that I have in this situation, because a lot of people, they're coming and they're saying, but what about Heroic? Well, the thing is, what about Heroic?
Them?
Right?
What about them?
Yeah, and the problem is, I'm in the camp where if it comes out and they provide the evidence, Hunden provides the evidence, Pimp can tell us what was provided, TV2 can help us, someone can help us, fuck Heroic, just like fuck Hunden, right? If they cheated. But this is the problem we have, is the speculation at the moment that's going around, and we don't know one way or another. And you can tell that there's definitely, just with some of the snarky tweets, certain players are sending out here, there, and everywhere. There's discontent brewing. And I think that is the problem, and especially what Prof's getting to, is the sense that this can't be resolved. And with this still going, without the people who have said they have information, providing said information, it just provides more speculation, and we stay treading water in this shit position, right?
Yeah.
And that's the bit that fucks me off the most about Hunden now coming out and changing his mind and saying, no, they did know. And trying to do it, right, under the guise of, oh, I was pressured by my employer into mental health issues. Like, if it comes out that Hunden is a liar, not only is he a fucking liar, he's spinning some of the greatest bullshit and using the classic 2021 scenarios that you can get away with, or put my hand up, I'm mentally ill, to fucking get away with nonsense, right? If it comes out that Heroic knew they were complete... But think about it.
If that was what he was trying to do, he didn't accomplish it. Like, that's the thing. That's the worst. Thing. Like, no one has any more compassion for Hunden at the end of this whole TV charade than they had at the beginning. If anything,
it didn't do him any good.
If anything, at the beginning we could maybe speculate, but now we just know almost for a fact that, like, there's nothing to be.
I find it, I do genuinely find the whole situation desperately sad. I think it's just horrendous. I don't take, I think people think I take some kind of joy in these things, like, oh, I'm getting to be the commissioner. It's bullshit. I don't like doing this. I'd much rather nobody had any idea who I was, because the life of Counter-Strike and all other games was just going along smoothly and was fun, like it's meant to be. None of us need this bullshit in our lives. None of us.
It's the drama mill. Now, look, we've lost Strike for a second. I'm sure he's going to come back. Prof, I want to transition here because we do have a couple more topics we need to get into regarding ESIC. So do we want to just put a pin in this, and if anything pops up that we ask about the Hunden stuff, then maybe we can quickly divert back? But I think we need to dig into these other bits and bobs.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we can maybe look at like the viewer questions that we have down, and maybe wrap up all together.
Yeah. Okay. So Ian, we had you on last time. We spoke about a lot of stuff. The coaching bug was a big focus, but there was also the MDL bans that happened, first of all, within North America. The match fixing, we've seen more on that recently. I don't think that one is causing too much contention at the moment, Prof. I think that one kind of just happened, and everyone's cool with that.
And the NA match fixing, or
the
what?
NA match fixing. Yeah.
I mean, that's not really completed yet.
There's more to come.
This is just like the small
far from, I'm afraid.
Oh dear. Okay. Is there anything new you can tell us about that?
Not really. Look, we're doing updates. One of the things that we were conscious of this communication gap, and it's been very, very difficult. And I've got a hell of a lot better at kind of not committing to timelines in the way that I did many, many months ago, because it kept backfiring in my face, which is my fault. That's the nature of these things, and I can explain that a little more. But we have opened up on our website an open matters registry where we will post updates of things, and I think we have got one there. Look, there's a few things on there. I think 4 or 5 open investigations there, but to try and keep people updated as much as we can in a sensitive and confidential area. The nature of that, unfortunately, is that whilst we have had these bans related to the Rebirth case and the recording, it's a very public matter, which is why I felt like we had to deal with it separately. But it is part of a far bigger investigation, which unfortunately still has some way to run, because the minute that we went public some months ago with the existence of this investigation, we were inundated with new information and evidence, and we are dealing with numerous other parties, including law enforcement, and everybody has a different agenda in this. And I'm not complaining about that. For example, the FBI has its priorities. We have our priorities. The Canadian police have their priorities. And there's a hell of a lot going on there, and it's big. And we are upscaling our resources to deal with that. I want to put this in the context of what happened in 2020, which I know is something we discussed before, but for context, we had a 300% increase in suspicious bet alerts in 2020 relative to 2019, 300%. And we were not, by my own admission, resourced or scaled to deal with that escalation last year when everything went online. And for all those months that esports was the only show in town, it was wonderful for esports, right? It was great, but it brought some real shit with it, and it's taken us a while to deal with that. And so I was wrong to give tight timelines in a situation where it turned out I should not have done that, because the matters escalated. In that case, we are looking at 35 players, 6 or 7 teams. We're getting there, make no mistake. There's amazing material at our disposal here, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time. We're getting access to some fantastic resources, but it's taking time.
Okay, that's a lot.
NACS is not completely dead yet, but it will be, apparently. Jesus Christ.
It's seriously problematic. And bear in mind, guys, that a lot of these players, knowing that they're in the shit in respect of CS, have tried to move to Valorant or have disappeared from the scene. So we're not just working with CS here, and we are getting wonderful cooperation from Riot and Valorant on this. There's a lot of cleaning up to do, and yeah, I have to hold my hands up to some of these delays. We just were not resourced, but we've worked our asses off to get resourced, and yeah, we're doing our best.
Okay. So do we have anything more on the NA stuff, or can I transition to the next one, boys? Striker Prof, you're good with that?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so this next one is one that is there's a lot of people in chat here for this one, Ian, is to do with the Australian bans.
Oh, I'm sorry,
right?
the guys are staying up late.
We put this one on early just for them, it just worked out this way. But so this whole Australian ban stuff, right? We remember when we've discussed it in the past, and there was like different scenarios here with players who are playing in leagues in ESEA, but they were betting on, say, ESL Pro League matches, right? There were so many different things, and there were so many people involved in this. But there's a lot of questions coming out from Australian players who are affected by this, and almost the Australian community as a whole. So is there an update that's going to come with that, or is it going to be case-by-case basis? What are we looking at?
Look, everybody, with I think 3 exceptions of all those guys, have been individually notified of the final position with respect to their case and all of the evidence involved. We will absolutely make a statement about the totality. In fact, it's prepared. I'm sitting here looking at it. I'm not going to give you a timeline on that, simply because we have these, I think there are 3, I may be wrong, there may be 4, informal appeals to me based on, what would I call it? Representations that 3 or 4 players have made to me for what amounts to, I guess, clemency, consideration. These are not formal appeals. We only had one formal appeal on that case, and then some guys who wrote to me asking for an informal review of their case and to give special consideration to special circumstances. And I have acceded to one of those. I thought was a reasonable request, and I have dealt with that matter. 3 of them I have decided not to accede to that, and I've got 3 or 4 to finalize, which are, just guys making their case to me, saying, I think I deserve clemency for these reasons. And some of them are valid, but I'm afraid most are emotionally valid, but they're not legally valid. And I don't want to be a dick about this, but I can't change precedent because of emotion.
Okay. So the thing is, I don't know on an intimate basis with a lot of these guys, right? Obviously, I'm Australian. There's no denying that. But I'm not super connected to the community, and I get on a daily basis people, kind of asking me to do something about it. Right now, I don't understand any of this enough. I think I reacted quite poorly when the announcement first came out, and then ever since there's some stuff that was not backtracked on, but there was different factors involved with it here that, maybe it would make looking at these things through a different lens less severe. I don't even know what I kind of want to ask here, because these kids, they're not professional players, right? And that's the bit that just sucks. It's like our community is already small enough.
Yeah. And look, I agree. And we didn't set out to ruin anybody here. This is not. And I have tremendous sympathy for a lot of these cases. And so from a solutions point of view, we need to do a hell of a lot more on education, and we're working on that a lot. We need to do a hell of a lot more on our member organizations communicating the rules and regulations that apply to these tournaments, because again, without wanting to dump on anybody, that was poorly done last year. I mean, poorly done. Which, all of these things combine to mean that a group of guys, and bear in mind, in any spectrum of people, there were guys who innocently placed bets in contravention of the code that they were subject to, and there were guys who were match fixing. Right? There's that whole spectrum, and trying to deal with that fairly and proportionately has been difficult. It's been difficult. And it's taken much longer than it should have. I'd be the first person to say it definitely has taken too long. I have a ton of sympathy for some of these individuals. But at one end of the spectrum, we've got guys who were engaged in corrupt activity knowingly. And this is why we're still talking to New South Wales Police, to Victoria Police, because there's been criminal activity here. And dealing with it in a spectrum is difficult. And look, there's so many things I would love to have done better, because I didn't understand the nature of the scene in Australia relative to, as you know, Chad, from my normal life is up at IEM Katowice, Cologne. I took ESEA Premier at Australia level. In my head, when I first started this, I thought I was dealing with that level. But I very quickly realized that we weren't, and that things got very messy, because when we made these allegations and published the list, I suddenly had, from literally every direction, and I'm talking Russian Bitcoin sites, operators who were offering markets in Australia illegally, all contacting me going, these players, this player has an account, this player has an account. And it turns out that with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bets, and as I say, at one end, these were innocent, and at the other end, they were corrupt as hell. It's taken me a much longer to come to a fair conclusion in respect of each of those guys than I would have liked, but we did. And one of the narratives, certain people like Michael Carmody, people in the community have been super helpful, giving us information, helping us engage with the players. But it's been hard, and it's been complicated. We've reached the end of that process, and I think what's missing is our final sort of public statement pulling all of this together. And I am sorry for some of the guys who ended up really getting hit hard by this when perhaps, perhaps if we'd had all of the information at our disposal at the beginning, perhaps wouldn't have suffered so much. But a lot of guys who were originally banned, I exercised my discretion to reduce their bans to 0 because I felt that it perhaps wasn't fair on them to take that view. So a lot of guys have had a reduction in bans, but equally some have had an increase because when we got new information, it turns out a guy that I'm taking examples, I'm not referring to individuals who had, let's say, I thought placed 10 bets, turned out to have placed 200, 300, 400 bets on matches in the league. So look, lessons learned, guys. Don't take on cases involving 37 people at a time, which is now what we're doing in America. Is whilst there are 35 players involved so far in our investigation, we'll deal with this 3 here, 5 here, 2 here, because dealing with 37 guys across a spectrum turned out to be highly problematic.
Okay. I just want to springboard off of that. So when the report is released, will it be quite clearly specified, hey, these were the scumbag match fixers and these were the kids who made ill-informed decisions?
Yeah.
Okay. And because there's a lot of people in here now, like I don't know each individual case. I can't, right? But there's a lot of people who are making comments about the lack of communication, right? And obviously you've said the amount of workload, there's other stuff than this. Yeah. Are some of these guys, like, let's say if they reach out, are they getting an email response from you, or are they then just going into the system and they'll hear when everybody hears?
Look, some have and some haven't. I have to say that this depends on whether they contacted me directly or went through a different channel.
Okay.
And yeah, as I've said, look, I would love the communication to have been better, but I don't want anybody to lose sight of the integrity threat that has been posed by elements and serious integrity threat. I mean, we're talking, a significant number of fixed matches, betting fraud. And if I had at the time more resources at my disposal, we would have dealt with this perhaps more efficiently in a better timeline, but we don't. And we've done my best, but there isn't, as far as I know, other than the 3 guys that I've mentioned, there's nobody who doesn't know the final position with respect to their case yet, right? Okay. So whilst that may not be out there in the public, our members know, our members know who's unbanned. If somebody applies to or enters a tournament, they're free to play, right? As much as certainly as an ESIC ban is concerned. And so everybody should know the position. If there's somebody who doesn't, they're very, very welcome to get in touch, but I'd be surprised. Of the 3 guys who are in the informal appeal process, you will be notified very, very shortly. I've made decisions in all of those cases. We're just looking at the communication method. And yeah, as I say, I'm not unsympathetic to those guys who were, at that end of our spectrum. But they've got to bear in mind that they were in the soup with guys who were nasty little shits.
Okay. Well, that, Prof. Striker, do you have anything on this?
I think it covers the Australian stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to lead the Akuma questioning?
I mean, it's a interesting case. Very interesting, especially because people, when they see ESIC Akuma, they think ban them for cheating, even though cheating is not what they're involved in. Anything that ESIC talked about regarding Akuma isn't about cheating, it's about potentially match fixing. But essentially what the problem is that the owner of Project X, CEO, whatever, placed bets on the Project X games when Project X was a team that had 3 or 4 Akuma members at the time. And he also placed a bet on one of the RMR games, I think against Navi, if that's correct. And you explained it as highly, what is it? Highly not questionable, but highly there's a specific
I
term
can't
for it.
remember what
Yeah,
it
highly
is, to be
suspicious.
honest.
Highly suspicious bets. So
Yeah.
can you tell us what is going on? What happened in that
Okay.
case, and what makes a highly suspicious bet to start off?
Okay, so the way bets are monitored, so we operate a global suspicious bet alert network, which includes a range of parties, data companies, betting operators, a lot of betting operators, the guys who supply data to them, law enforcement, gambling regulators, and monitoring companies, which are people like, say, Sportradar or the Global Lotteries Monitoring Service or the International Betting Integrity Association, who have multiple members, betting operator members. So everybody has their own integrity system looking at the way betting behaves. Some people look at all the markets in aggregate, and some look at just their own behavior on their own site or their own betting program. So any one of those parties can notify us of something suspicious. So what that means is where the betting behaves in an unpredictable, a way that has not been predicted. So, for example, the more money is placed on a particular outcome, the bookmaker adjusts the odds downward to reduce their risk, right? So that's kind of obvious. And what happens is a point at which if people are betting based on their guess at the outcome, they stop. When the odds become unfavorable, they stop putting money on. But if somebody just continues to pile money on, even as the odds go down, 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 that's really suspicious because it indicates that they know the outcome of the event they're betting on, right? Or that they've somehow
even if the odds are bad, they're still going to bet because they're just
convinced
they're going to win, right?
Correct, right?
Okay.
Or they know they're going to win because the match has been fixed. And look, there are multiple indicators, but whenever this happens, our members of our suspicious bet alert network inform us, we inform everybody. So, and then we look at why is the betting behaving as it's behaving. And one of the explanations, and a frequent explanation, is that there's a fix, that the result has been bought or known or bribed or determined in advance of the game. That's match fixing. Now, in this case, and without going into detail, we had sufficient reports to indicate that that somebody knew an outcome that they should not have known, and therefore, we took action. Now, I really can't go any further than this in discussing the Akuma case, except to say this: there is a lot under investigation, because when we made our announcement and went out to our members with this warning, is that I was again inundated with data, let's call it that, with betting data relating to Akuma and Project X, which, given our other investigations, I hold my hands up, I have not had time to delve into to determine whether or not there is any kind of sustainable case against these players, because we have to assume innocence, and I want to, in effect, release them from the speculation, if that's possible, as quickly as possible, or prosecute them if they are involved in this kind of activity. But again, workload, resources, but we will do that shortly. We've had a lot of information in about this case, a lot.
So you're confident that that it will stick, like the accusations?
I'm not at all confident. I don't have enough information to say. I'm just saying that the initial information was sufficient to put out the warning that we put out.
Okay.
More than sufficient. So what comes of that when I aggregate it with the other data, it would be pure speculation.
Okay.
I don't know.
There's this one question that I got, which is, let's say they are the players that played for Akuma Project X, that they are innocent, that they weren't involved in any fixing. What happens to these players? Like, we know that their reputation has suffered because of it. They lost some chances to play some tournaments, maybe lost chances to be a part of an organization. How do they even regain that, let's say, I don't know, their reputation?
Look, I suppose at the moment, and look, I'm not responsible or ESIC is not responsible for their reputation. I mean, I'm sure you're all aware that there was endless social media speculation around this, both at the time and continuing. My warning was to protect my members from a particular situation. I'm aware that that is a continuing situation, that we bear some responsibility in terms of, if we can, clearing that up. And that's what I will try and do. So my view is that if on review of the evidence there is insufficient evidence to sustain a prosecution against anybody, then that's as far as ESIC is concerned, the factual situation that we have to reach. I'm in no position to say that any player has not cheated or match fixed. I couldn't do that in respect of any player. All I can say is I have no evidence that they did. And I hope to reach that point, or to reach a point of saying, I am prosecuting X player or Y player as a result of evidence that we've got. But I would love to be able to do what I can to clear these guys if they're innocent, and I am on that. But I am one person trying to resolve that issue against the background of 50 other issues right now.
I guess, Prof, kind of where you're going with that is like the idea of like damages, right? If we were to kind of talk about this as like a civil situation,
Yeah,
like
I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective, but just in general, like
Sure.
how would they even get to a point where they are legit players again? Even though I agree with Ian on the part that this isn't their biggest concern in terms of why people think that they have a bad reputation. It's not simply because ESIC said that maybe there was some match fixing on some of their. I think the part which kind of fucks them up is that everyone thinks they cheated, and
the radar.
not
bug,
everyone, but
right? Well,
but
not
a
the
lot
bug,
of
but
a lot of people think they had like some sort of assistance, right? So
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, and we, obviously we didn't begin that speculation, or were even really heavily involved in it. It was it came across our desk, and then the betting information came that gave rise to our warning.
Okay. Let's just focus in here now, because we've covered off the HUNDEN document sharing. We covered off the HUNDEN, the opposing team that was involved, the allegations about the heroic players. We touched on the Australian MDL bans, the North American match fixing, the Akuma situation. Oh, yeah, the coach bug, right? There's still more to come out about that at some point. Like I know you're saying we're not given timeframes anymore, but can you give us? Should we prepare for another rainy day?
It's not going to rain quite as hard as last time.
Okay.
What we finally need to resolve. Bear in mind that this second batch is much shorter incidences, usually 1s and 2. It's far less. And what caused me to reconsider our approach in respect of the second ban, and has created some delay, is that I'm sure you're aware that Valve reacted to our first set of sanctions around this by introducing some consequences for majors and RMR and all of this stuff, right? And it gave me pause for concern with respect to the second batch, because I'm aware that there are far greater potential consequences to these guys' careers than what was originally, in the first instance, just an ESIC thing, right? Valve has, and I'm not saying rightly or wrongly, has made it a bigger thing, and so we're cooperating with Valve with respect to reach a conclusion that I'm happy with before we go public with these cases. And these ones we have reviewed now twice on literally an individual by individual case. Look, there is going to be a release of sanctions in this case, but because of the Valve overlay and my own concern that any sanctions have to again be proportionate against that background. I don't want guys to be over punished for something that is far smaller than that original batch of cases. So a lot of the delay is those discussed, but it's also just putting my hands up to the fact that it's just me wanting to be really as right as possible on this one. I don't want to screw anybody unjustly.
Does that mean you're
I'm being very careful about this.
Does that mean you're trying to come up with some sort of a new matrix? Because I know like you had to determine some sort of a
Yes.
like at least the lowest amount of possible that would
Yeah.
go into the matrix at least, right? But that's
Correct.
obviously not the case here because that was at least one round, I think, originally, and that's
Correct.
as far as
Yeah.
I understand, it's not what you're considering now. It's less than one round in
Well,
the
at
remaining
least,
cases.
yeah, there are a few that are more than that, but
Okay.
really small. So this is one round or part of a round. Yes. And
Got it.
so I am, yeah, as I say, this is far, far more individually looking at each one carefully, and yeah, and determining whether somebody should be sanctioned at all in some of these. I mean, I'll give you an example, not by name, obviously, but thing. We've got ones where for a full round, a guy's is bugged, but his camera's facing a wall.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you do? You know,
Sure.
or it's in his own spawn.
Okay.
You know, that type of stuff. I'm like, I don't. Again, I don't want to hem myself in and paint myself into a corner by going one round is enough. I want to look at that round. What's the impact?
Okay.
So we've been doing that, and look, we've done all of that work. I just want to make sure that Valve and ESIC are aligned on this, because I don't want guys to be double punished for something that is, yeah, that is within my control to determine.
Okay.
Got it.
Bit more responsibility with this one because Valve can be very
I
black
feel
and
like
white,
that.
can't they? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I feel I didn't realize at the time that Valve, and I'm not saying they were wrong to get involved. I just didn't realize they would.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Boys, in terms of the topics that we've had so far, do we have anything that we want to ask now, or do we want to go into these viewer questions, Prof? And maybe that will.
Yeah, I have one viewer question that I feel like is good. I don't know if Striker has anything that he wants to ask now, or
I mean, I have something that kind of came from viewer anyway, so we might as well move on to that. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, let's do
you
it.
go. You go first.
Sure.
Then.
Okay. I mean, generally, just like I'm sure you understand why, like the original release about, and I'm talking about the Hunden sharing documents case. That's basically the biggest, I guess, misunderstanding we can call it now after we've gotten some clarification is what those documents entail, right? And the
Sure.
word anti-strat, being used, because what a lot of people see as anti-strats is it's simply information on other teams about their tendencies, right? Not about how a team reacts to that information, but only like very simple information on what other teams do, right?
Sure.
So I guess the question is, if it was only that information, would you have gotten involved?
That's a good question, because so what I've looked at in terms of anti-strat, just to be clear, is that sometimes what is referred to as anti-strat is exactly as you've described, but sometimes it also includes, well, what are the optimum reactions to these strats, right? So even within the term anti-strat, you've got a spectrum of potentially useful information, because I agree that there's an awful lot of stuff that's just basically publicly available to anyone who puts the trouble in. But that's the nature of data, is if you have put the trouble in, your data becomes a hell of a lot more valuable than if somebody hasn't put the trouble in. And so to answer that question is genuinely impossible, because I would have had to look at, well, what was the nature of the anti-strat? But I was saved that problem by the fact that there was additional data. But I agree that, and I am concerned about this at a general level, is this idea that it's okay for coaches to share anti-strat. And you guys will know, with being within the scene, when I first learned that, for example, in the build-up to big tournaments, teams will often scrim against each other in the build-up and then play against each other at the tournament. I find that weird, man. That's like Manchester United and Manchester City having practice matches the week before they play each other in the Premier League. I mean, that's just weird. I'm not. It bothers me. It bothers me, the amount of cooperation between coaches, because I think your self-development as a coach, becoming a better coach, is is clearly a career aim. That's what you do. But doing it at the cost of, or at the potential cost of, the competitive integrity of the team that you're working for, and everything in your power to advance, it bothers me. It bothers me, guys. I don't know the answer to it because I'm not buried in the system, but I'm worried about this sharing of data and information. I'm not
Yeah.
happy about it.
I mean, I'm just curious about, because
Yeah.
I've had some coaches, come to me saying they're basically
Yeah.
afraid to speak up about this because what if they
Yeah.
come on the show and say, okay, this is what this team does and this is what we did
Yeah.
to counter that, right? Like
Yeah.
this is information that people will just disperse
Yeah.
like on a casual basis, like
Of
very,
course, but
very
it's in
often.
retrospect, isn't it? And I've got no problem with that. It's just, that's like any football manager coming on going, well, we know that, that Spurs always do this, and you'll see in this game that we just played how we countered that. We blocked up out, or whatever they did. In retrospect, it's no problem. It's when it's speculating in advance. If I'm the coach of a team and I go on your program 3 days before they play and go, hey, we think our opponent's going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to counter it by doing this, this, and this, you'd just be an idiot.
But do you see that as
doing it in retrospect?
But do you see that as an actual threat to integrity, though? If a coach was going to
not
do
in
that?
a public domain. No, I don't, because you're doing it publicly. You're kind of you're transmitting the information.
So then if it was behind the scenes, then like if
But
two
if
coaches
it's
were
behind the
talking,
scenes, yeah. I mean, it's just sitting at a table in the player lounge, going, "Hey, I think you guys are going to do this, and I'm going to do this," and that would be idiotic. And unfortunately, what Hunden did, I see as the equivalent of that.
Okay. The thing, I think the concern here is, and tell me if I'm heading down the right direction here, Striker, is that with the concerns that Striker has come out with and said, like, if with this and how it's interpreted by ESIC going forward is going to shape how these individuals interact. So it's precedent setting regardless, right?
Yeah.
And
good.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like this is because a part of this has to come from, like, your view is much more with traditional sports, where first of all, not traditional sports, but second of all, in terms of the way things should be conducted, traditional sports have much more ironed out than we do, right? I won't even try and have that conversation. But my point here is that, are we behind? Do you think, right? Because what you're saying here, and with the general consensus of certain stuff regarding anti-strat and those conversations that we saw in the Twitter discourse, are we, by your opinion, behind the 8 ball on what we should be considering as intellectual property that should be guarded?
Yeah, look, frankly, yes. I think that there are issues here. Let's go back to inside information. Mostly I deal with inside information in the context of betting. But if you just take that definitely, in betting terms, do I have information by virtue of being inside the tent that is useful to somebody outside the tent for betting purposes? That's inside information.
Right.
In this context, I genuinely think that if I know something by virtue of being inside heroic that could be useful to somebody not inside heroic, then I shouldn't tell them. I honestly think it's that simple. And of course, timing's important here. If I know that information goes out of date, and I think that discussing general strategies is interesting. Now, if I'm in Team A and I'm chatting to the coach of Team B about Team C, we're both learning something here, aren't we? We're having a conversation. We're exchanging ideas and data. We're going, hey, have you noticed how Team C always does this? I think we could counter that by doing this. And then the other coach B says, yeah, but I think we could try. This is just tactical, generalized discussion. But if I go to if I'm coach A and I'd say to coach B, hey, when Team C does this, I'm going to do this. This is an insight into how my team plays. So when Team B plays against me, I've given them information about how we play. And that's information I have got by virtue of being inside the tent. and it could be an advantage. So why the hell am I telling him that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and if I
It's a
tell
fine line, but you can definitely see the line. I get, yeah. Oh,
happy days, it's a fine line, but can you see the line?
Yeah, I mean,
can
I'm
see
just
the line.
I think it is all about timing.
the difference is
Mm.
that you're dispersing information about the team you're working for rather than
Yeah.
about somebody else in general. Like as you were saying,
Yeah.
the tactical knowledge, I suppose. So that's basically where
Yeah.
the line stands. If it's something that pertains to the team that you're working for, and you're sharing that information with somebody else who can use it against you later, that's a problem. But if
Yes.
it's just general discussion about a different
Yeah.
team without references to how you would counter that, it's okay.
Yeah, and look, as I say, I know, and in traditional sport, it's the same. At the end of a season, you sit. Alex Ferguson, after a match, would sit down with a coach with his famous bottle of red wine, and they would talk things through. And they would talk about the game that had just occurred, but they'd talk about opposing teams and what they thought of this manager. I don't see any particular problem with that because you're just learning. But I guarantee you, what he wouldn't tell the guy is, hey, next time we play you, I'm going to do this.
Gotcha.
That's the line. You just don't give somebody an advantage over you. Giving them an advantage over your mutual enemy, hey, happy days. I don't care about that. I do care about giving away information about you, about your team, your tactics, and in a way that could give your opponent an advantage. And I think that's a relatively easy concept to get in your head and abide by.
Okay. Yep. All right. Do we have many more questions?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
From a viewer also says it's an interesting because you talked a lot about funding, having limited resources and stuff like that. So, question that's kind of related to that. Ivan, the truth, I think he's even in chat, says, "How does ESIC get the funding to do your work, right? And how are you looking to increase that funding to be able to have more resources and do things better?"
Yeah, okay. So we're entirely a member-funded and owned organization. So our members own us, so to speak. Each has a share, and they pay an annual subscription, which is on a spectrum. So obviously, you'd expect our big members like ESL and Blast pay a lot more than smaller TOs. On the Suspicious Bet Alert network side, all of the betting operators pay a flat fee of $5,000 a year. So to give you context, our budget this year will be in the region of 300,000 US. And to put that in context, we have a similar caseload, as I've said publicly, to say the Tennis Integrity Unit or the Anti-Corruption Unit of the International Cricket Council, whose annual budget is somewhere between $2 and $3 million. So we are under-resourced, and the way that we're addressing that is twofold. Is that we are obviously trying to attract more members. So the more, and in particular the publishers, because we don't get any money from any game developer or publisher. All of our members are tournament organizers. So we are hampered by the fact that the main beneficiaries of the esports ecosystem are not contributing to the integrity of it. I make that as a bland statement. We would love them to be involved. So the only way to get more money is to get more members, which we need to involve more people, and we're also doing some really on the verge of doing some really nice resources deals with investigatory companies who have the right software, manpower, expertise to take our investigative process to a whole different level, which is really going to open things up for us, so we can start delivering on what we need to deliver on, which is outcomes on match fixing and cheating cases. So that's what we're doing. But yeah, more members, more money. I'm afraid that's literally the only answer in terms of resources.
Okay. I think this is one of the things, right? It's the esports integrity commission. Like esports is huge. It's like this is why when when people refer to Counter-Strike as an esport, no, it's Counter-Strike, right? Like this is the thing. It's such a large umbrella there. Okay. I guess
bear in mind, Chad, that let's look from an integrity point of view, particularly from a match fixing point of view. There are only really 3 games, and I mean this in a bit. 80% of betting on esports globally, legally, illegally, regulated, unregulated, licensed, unlicensed, occurs on Counter-Strike, Dota 2, and League of Legends. Everything else is the rest. So from an integrity point of view, I'm not saying cheating doesn't occur in these other games, cheating to win, but from a match fixing betting fraud point of view, you're really talking about 3 games, and in reality, you're talking about 2, because League of Legends is well under control. The League of Legends scene is good. Valorant is coming up, but it's also because Riot know what they're doing and are actively engaged. That scene is, I would regard as having inherent integrity. I'm not saying there's no problems. Relative to Dota 2 and Counter-Strike, it's nothing. Counter-Strike accounts for 43% of global betting on all esports. All esports. It's huge. And so I know it looks like ESIC is like taking a pot at Counter-Strike. I wish that weren't the case. My favorite game. It's just that Counter-Strike is so damn big in my world. It's just big.
And I presume Dota is also like a big chunk of the rest.
Yeah, Dota's a mess. I'm not going to talk about Dota. Dota's a goat show. It drives me mental. Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay. Viewer questions. Do we have anything left, or do you two have anything left for Ian here? Because this has been as stressful as an exam. I didn't pass my exams in high school, and that's why I'm here. You got anything, boys?
I think we covered more or less everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
We sure?
Yeah. I mean,
a lot
I
of
can't
fingers
think
are
of
going to be
anything.
pointed at us for not
I've been
pointing them at
thinking for a
Ian.
long time.
I can ask one more thing, but let's just try to keep it short, because
Sure.
Okay.
just to not keep you too long, and then Lucas as well, because we still have to do a couple of things later. So there's a group of people that kind of think that, ESIC, they don't understand CS. What the fuck are they even doing? Like, why are they important? Why would we listen to, what ESIC has to say about anything? Because, they don't understand CS. They don't have experts in their ranks. What do you say to that kind of criticism? What's your how do you convince these guys that you're the real deal?
Okay. I'll tell you what I am an expert in is integrity and betting fraud, in particular, and doping. I know about cheating. I know a lot about that stuff. I know how to investigate it. I know how to expose it. I know how to find it. So yeah, they're quite right. I'm not an expert in CS. I'm a casual fan. I'm a gamer of long before, well, certainly before any of you guys were born. I played games on arcades in the 70s. So I have a gamer's sympathy, but absolutely correct. I don't know squat about the deep dive on CS. I don't need to. If they say, well, we have no in-house expertise, but bear in mind who my members are, right? I've got ESL, Blast Premier, WePlay, UMG, Allied Esports. I know you guys. I mean, Chad, you've been at lots of events with me. I'm standing around with the best coaches in the world every time I've been at a LAN event. So, okay, let's write off the last 18 months, unfortunately. I bloody wish I had more contact. I love talking to these guys, but if I have a technical issue about CS, I have the best people in the world at my disposal to ask whether it's an issue or not. But I don't need to delve into that very often. What I need to know about is, is there betting evidence that something dodgy has occurred? Is that backed up by the match analysis? And that match analysis is done by experts, not by me. I don't watch a demo and go, oh, he had a headshot, but he didn't take it. Or he peeped out from behind a wall at a really stupid time. Or he failed to take, that's not me doing that. That's guys like you doing that. So yeah, I don't know that much about Counter-Strike at the level that the true fan and player does, but I don't need to. Don't need to.
Okay. All right. Happy with that one, Prof?
Yeah.
Well, I think the lead on, and I know you wanted to keep it short, would be like about who those panels are. Like, would we want to be transparent about who they are, and then we come into the problems with, well, now we're putting it on those guys, right? They made they told Ian this, and that is that a whole different rabbit hole that we go down.
Yeah, look, guys, I mean, I'm not going to start putting these guys in the spotlight because that would be mad. I mean, one of them from the coach bug because it's been very public. Guy Michal Slawinski and Steve Dudenhoff. We've got guys who know what they're talking about at our disposal. But I'm not going to shove those guys into the spotlight and make them take. The buck does stop with me. We took a big hit, and Richard Lewis has referred to this on his show. We made a horrible mistake 2 years ago, accusing a team of stream sniping.
This is Gotham,
Fortunately,
right?
it didn't. Yeah, and that's because I relied on experts that turned out to be wrong. But it was my mistake. Yes, they gave me shitty information, but the buck does stop with me. It always does. I'm not going to make excuses. I relied on information and I acted on it. And thank God that the team pointed out where I was wrong and we corrected that. And look, this is going to happen from time to time, but the idea that I kind of make this shit up as I go along, I'm going to get rid of that. I'm not an expert. I don't make it up as I go along. If I don't understand something technically, and that applies to literally everything that happens in Dota or League of Legends, because I know less than nothing about those games, I rely on experts, and and they're experts that you guys and the fans would have no problem accepting our experts. But what I'm not going to do is go, hey, here's my expert, take a shot at him.
Sure.
What type of dickhead would do that?
Sure. Okay, yeah, because I think that would probably be where the next line of questioning would be. Who are these people? So, all right,
maybe TV2 would do that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe TV2.
Well, they can do it till the cows come home. I'm not going to put these guys out there because that's just not fair. That's not right.
Okay, do we have any more questions, boys? Because
no,
we're good.
No,
okay,
good.
Ian. Right now, we have some sponsor stuff we got to get through right now, and we don't need to put you through that. But what I do want to do is I want to put you in this position, right? If you have some nuggets of wisdom that you want to get out there, if there's anything that you want to say to the people at home, this would be the perfect opportunity for that.
Oh man, that's a lovely opportunity, and I haven't really thought anything through.
Putting you on the spot.
I guess, yeah. Look, be patient with us. Ask the questions. I've got no problem. I'm not a defensive person. I'm quite confident. I'm confident enough to know that we are going to screw up from time to time. But our priority is that when two players or two teams meet in an esports competition, that both sides are doing their absolute best to win and do that fairly. Because anything else is a threat to the entire ecosystem. So all I'm saying is, I believe our heart is in the right place. If people think we're screwing up, then tell us and let's look at solutions rather than just bitching from the bleachers, which a lot of that has occurred, and that's fine. I've got broad shoulders. I can handle it, right? I'm an old guy. I can take the shit. But help us improve because we're here for the ecosystem, right? We're here, and in particular, my final word is that we're here for the players because it's the players that really take the biggest hit in any integrity scandal in any sport. And that's because if, let's say something happens in Counter-Strike, are Valve going to suffer? In professional esport Counter-Strike, are Valve going to suffer? Nah. They've still got 50 million people playing the game every week. Might take a little bit of a hit, but broadly speaking, no problem for Valve. Is it a problem for ESL? Yeah, but there's lots of other games that they can throw events in. Is it a problem for the multi-game orgs? No, because they just drop their CS roster and pick up a different game roster or adjust their offering or pick up more streamers. Who takes the hit? Prize money reduces, when sponsors back out, when broadcast stops, when HLTV don't want to put something on because they think it's corrupt or fixed. 80% of Chinese CSGO. Why is there no Chinese CSGO on HLTV? Because it's fixed. It's not worth putting on, right?
Yep.
So all of that happens. Who takes the hit? The players. The players take the hit. The number of matches, level of tournament, amount of prize money, personal sponsorships, broadcast, streaming. It's the players who take the hit, and you guys will take the hit. You guys. Shittier tournaments, lower prize money, fewer of them, less interest. That's what we're here to stop. We're here to stop that shit. We want Counter-Strike, we want Valorant, we want Dota, we want League of Legends, we want FIFA, we want all these things to thrive because esports is cool and it benefits good people in a lovely industry. Let's just get rid of the shit.
Okay. Nice. All right. Well,
Nice.
that's probably a great place to leave it. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say goodbye to Ian. Thank you very much for joining us. Lucas, you can run the playtime bumper and we'll come back in a second. But I just want to say quickly, thank you to Ian for joining us. Thank you for giving us 2 hours of your time. Obviously, a very busy
No
man.
problem.
We really appreciate it. And hopefully in the future, when we get to talk to you, well, it's probably going to be about more drama, but it's, you know, easy to talk about drama.
I've got views on lots of cool stuff. You know,
As you've said, you're not a CS expert, so it's just have to be the drama. then.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Football,
guys.
maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
That's yeah. Thanks,
Great.
guys, and good luck.
Thank you
See
very
soon.
much.
Thank you.
Cheers,
All right.
and bye. Bye.
Lucas, roll
The Xtrfy M42 RGB, what a fun mouse with 5 colorways, lightweight frame at just 59 grams with a swappable backplate to suit your grip style, the sensor, the easy core, the smooth skates, and driverless control for RGB and DPI is why you should check out the M42 RGB down below.
Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna see you rolling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parimatch, your esports teammate. Buy and sell your skins now. Easy, fast, and safe. The best skin site. Credit card deposits and withdrawals. Instant cash out methods. Get the best deals. Quick, simple, reliable. Bitskins.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I was going to talk really, really fast because we're going to get through this quickly because Lucas has to go. But yeah, that was great. It was really good to have Ian join us. We're going to power through some of these last little bits and bobs that we have to tie up here before we're done. We're going to go into who wants to be a skinionaire. Who's doing the quiz this time around?
It's you.
It's me. Lucky
Yeah.
me. Send me
Do
the
you
link.
want to do you want to use two voices, like as the announcer and the guy
you can
answering the
do
question?
the questions. You can call
I
the
can do
questions
the
out.
okay. I need the link, and then we'll start.
All right. So we're waiting on Lucas. He's pumping the links out now. Is
There
that
we
for
go.
me?
Who wants
for
to
me.
be
Okay.
a skinionaire?
Nice.
Do-do-do-do-do. Let's just start. Yeah, the premise of the show: the more Sponge gets, the more answers he gets correct, the better skin one
You at
guy
home.
is gonna win. And of course, I picked some stupid questions
Nice.
about like Australia. So if he gets any wrong, it's not that he's just losing skins for you guys. He's just losing his reputation
I think I
among
already
his
lost
fellow
that. Did you see all the
Yes.
Australians in there fucking going bonkers when Ian was on the show?
sellout, all of that. Yeah, you literally weren't in Australia for like 3 years.
True.
Like, your accent is gone.
Yeah.
You don't even call like
I don't call my mum anymore.
flip flop stongs.
All right. Let's do it.
Okay, are we
Bitskins.
good? Okay, yeah. Bitskins sponsor this. They're going to be providing the skin for the winner, and let's go. Okay, first question. Who was the only player to win an HLTV MVP award representing an Australian team? Was it AJKS, B
AJKS.
NAF, or C
Lock it in.
Sponge?
Lock it in. Lock it in.
That's
What?
definitely not correct.
Yeah,
That-
okay, so I got that one right. That's fine. That one's all good. We know that one's right. There's one for me.
No, it was definitely NAF. So just
Oh,
saying.
I misread the question.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I mean, playing for an Australian team, not being an Australian person.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've locked in NAF.
Okay. Okay. Second question. Obviously correct. No one saw that. Second question. Let's go. Which current Renegades member wasn't a part of the Chiefs roster at IM Sydney 2017? Was it Hats, Ints, or Malta? Who wasn't a part of Chiefs in 2017 when they won the famous match against North on Nuke?
Hats.
With a, are you gonna click it?
I'm gonna click it.
He's gonna click Hats, and that is correct.
I knew that one because Hats joined that Renegades team kind of recently. I think it was in place of Urcast.
Yeah, I mean, Ince also joined recently, but he was around. Let's go to the third question. What was JKS's highest placing on the top 20 player of the year list? Was it 10th, 15th, or 20th?
He was ahead of he was ahead of Config that year. I remember. Like Config didn't make the top 20 that year.
So he wasn't 20th, or he didn't make it.
I think he was 15th. I'm gonna go with 15th. I'm locking it in.
Going for the middle, splitting the middle.
Yep.
And it's correct.
That's bloody good, guys. An Australian in top 15 in the world.
That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty good.
And he was 19th, I think, the next year. So pretty cool. Not gonna be there this year, pretty sure.
Bad face.
Fourth question. What team does former Greyhound player Urcast currently represent?
Oh,
Is it
shit.
Tiger, Paper Rex, or NKT?
NKT, because the team that they were in before also had some stupid acronym.
There we go. And that logic is correct. And the answer is also correct. That's question number 4. One more.
Are we getting them all right? Wait, only 3.
You got 3 out of 4. So you could go for an AK. What is this? I don't know. It looks nice though. It's like blue.
15 euro skin.
Yeah, let's go. Who was the top fragger for Titan in their infamous match against Renegades in 2015?
Maniac. Lock it in.
He locked it in. He's locking in Maniac, and it's correct.
We've done it. We've only watched that match about 600 times. I think I've done pretty well there.
Honestly,
4 out of 5. And if I read the first question properly, probably could have got 5 out of 5.
Yeah. So that's pretty decent. Lucas is gonna roll the raffle, and someone's gonna win something.
All you guys who've been putting it in the chat, none of you lost, other than Hyper Frisky. Hyper Frisky. That's Hyper Frisky. You have won the skin, and you can thank me.
Now we can move on with whatever the fuck we want to talk about.
All right. So
do you want to touch on Hunden just like very shortly?
Okay.
Can we even do that very shortly?
Do it. Go.
What are like our takeaways from this whole talk? Like for me, a lot of questions have been answered. Do I agree with all of the logic? I'm not really sure. In some of these cases, and what ESIC, how they look at, but at least I understand.
Yes.
To some degree, why they're doing it, but the issue with how much they actually understand CS in some of these cases, I feel like that is still an area that needs some work on. Just about how people interact in CS in general. I don't think they can come in and just change CS to how they feel like it should work.
That was with my question at the end.
That was kind of that's kind of the issue, the biggest issue that I see here. Not saying that Hunden shouldn't be banned or should be, but it's just about precedents and future things that could pop up potentially. What did you think about it, Striker?
Yeah, I mean, my like every question that I had was generally answered. Obviously, like you say, maybe we can differ on what the length should be, or whether the fact that I forgot what I wanted to say, or just about the 2 years, right? Or whether the fact that the threat didn't actually materialize should come into question, because according to ESIC, it shouldn't. So that's something that I generally am not sure that I agree with. I think I'm still in the camp that should be taken into consideration, because like obviously if something didn't have an impact on a tournament, whatever the intent was, like the impact wasn't there, right? So that I think should be taken into account. But in general, like I got a good feeling off of this. I generally had an idea that most of the issue that stemmed from this decision was communicational rather than the actual decision, because like it just wasn't made it clear enough what the documents entailed, right? And we only got that information as we got along. And I like that Ian kind of kind of clarified that what Heroic said in that statement about what those documents entailed was, or at least that he verified that they were true, at least for the most part, which obviously is a massive thing because that changes everything, right? Like a lot of people, and that me included, were under the impression that anti-strats would have meant just information about other teams and not pertaining to Heroic themselves, right? And that, as Ian said, would not have been as serious, or would not have been serious at all. They consider that okay behavior if teams just share general information about other teams without talking about how they would react to that information. So I think that clears a lot of coaches that kind of talk to me about being a little bit afraid about speaking up about what they think about the Hunden case and what they think is okay to share with other teams and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that they will hear this and they will understand that it's fine if they just talk in a fucking, like, in a bar with another coach about like what another team does in general. Like nobody cares about that stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we got that clarified for sure. And in general, I think I'm hoping that people will get a better idea of ESIC's view on this and why they made that decision in the first place. I generally just get the feeling that there's, as the end, like there's very little that Hunden can now say that will change anything. In regards to this case, I'm not talking about all
the coach thing is different.
Yeah, that's obviously very different, and that there could easily be evidence that could implicate the players. So that's definitely something separate and should not be muddled in with all this with all the document sharing in the first place. I think Hunden made a big fuck up in doing that.
Look, I think one of the things that surprised me was the timing that Ian pointed out, right? I don't know what you guys thought about that, where he said if it wasn't for the timing of them going up against Astralis, right?
and the groups,
that's crazy. Like when you think about that, like if he had done that after his contract had ended, like after his resignation had gone through, right? Assuming he still had access to those files. Let's say he didn't have access to those files. Let's say that it was just off the top of his head, right? Because he would have been okay. It would have been fine, according to what we just learned. So the fact that he did it while still under contract with Heroic, right? That's the bit that fucked him, right?
And right before a tournament as well. It's just that was also a big part of it, because if it happened after, even if it was still under contract, obviously ESIC wouldn't have been just like okay with that, but they would have let Heroic to solve that, because that's just like basically a breach of contract, IP rights and whatever, that kind of stuff, right? So
but there is more to the story. Like we know maybe 20-30% at this point, because there obviously were talks between Astralis and Hunden to join Astralis, right?
Yes.
That's what we know.
That's what the rumor.
We know that we know that.
Okay.
And we know that obviously Hunden needs to get out of his Heroic contract to go there, and his Heroic contract wasn't due to go out, I think, very quickly. Like he had to do a resignation and then because it's not the same coach and player contracts, they can be different. So I don't know about that part, but I know that if Astralis wants to sign him, he can't be a part of Heroic. So, and I know that at least like in June already, we knew that Astralis and Heroic were talking. So that's like 2 months before all of this happened, a month and a half. It's just weird. And this whole part about like, oh, this guy didn't open the document, he was on holiday, but that part,
that's
for me,
sketch.
That's pretty sketchy. Like I'm okay with if they had a company verify that the guy didn't open it. Okay, I can believe that.
Chat.
Well, to be fair, if he didn't open it, he didn't know that there was something that would have threatened the integrity, right?
So that I think woke up one day and I'm going to send this to the guy.
Yeah,
like
right.
But like maybe he didn't know exactly what it was, right?
Right. Yeah, but I mean, obviously, like it's at that point, I guess to a degree, it clears that person, because he can't have the full extent of the information on whether this is even like important information about, or that would threaten the integrity of a tournament, because he didn't access it in the first place.
Depends on what they talked before. Like
obviously, but like I'm just talking about the fact that it was shared to him. Like that's what Ian said, right? Like they can't prosecute somebody based on information they don't have.
This is
so
the part
if that's
where
not something that they can get, then it's difficult, right?
We kind of wish or imagine ESIC as, a world police, or you watch a TV show, you have some implication, now they bang on someone's door, like, give me all the files, show me your phone, give me all the transcripts of give me all the calls, and these are the things that ESIC doesn't really have. unfortunately. But I would also expect them to be a bit more proactive on these cases. He did say that they asked the guy, and the guy said that like nothing happened. But is that where they need to stop, or can they push it a bit further, ask for, clarification, proof that nothing happened? Because in my eyes, there is enough. Like, if we were banning, this is the thing. We don't know why HUNDEN shared these things, but we also don't know why this other person potentially got these things. So if we are implying that HUNDEN shared this, and this could have super damaged the company, why aren't we maybe expecting the same from the other side, that it was done with malicious intent? Maybe
it's in bad faith.
Yeah, but maybe we're not implying that HUNDEN did it in bad faith. Maybe we're just implying that he did it, and whatever faith he had doesn't matter. And they just, it's just one of these things where I feel like the other part should be investigated, to at least to some degree, if this is so important to ban a guy for 2 years, right?
Sure. I get what you're saying, but like, this is where we are going to get into speculation right now, right, guys?
Yeah.
This is like the fucking X-Files right now. But cop this timeline of this year for HUNDEN. The 29th of April, heroic to reinstate HUNDEN as coach, so he served his ban. The 4th of July, sources, Zonic ponders leaving Astralis as contract nears end. And in that article, multiple sources also indicated that Astralis have already started planning for their 2022 campaign and have placed heroic coach Nikolai HUNDEN Peterson at the top of their list of coaching candidates. The 30-year-old has been with heroic, blah, 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 blah. But that right there is the first time in print, right, on HLTV at least, that the conversation was about HUNDEN being at the top of the list to replace Zonic at Astralis. That's the first time. Literally a day later, the 5th of July, HUNDEN to miss IEM Cologne. That's what the headline reads. The headline should have read, HUNDEN to miss IEM Cologne, the first LAN event back since fucking COVID started, right? Like, that right there at the time, because I think I was like, oh, we haven't seen HUNDEN in any social media stuff traveling with the team. Then Heroic come out and put some dada statement. This is like, Heroic have to have a look at himself in the fucking mirror here. First of all, they gave HUNDEN a second chance. Second of all, in the statement they made about this, it was like, oh, it's for the benefit and the health of our players. We'll have our fucking physiotherapist and our mental coach, right? Why are we stomaching that bullshit? If HUNDEN's fucking your shit up, come out and say this guy's a fucking rat. Like, he's doing shit he shouldn't be doing. Why are we protecting him again? He already has shown he's a liar and a cheater, and then they're protecting him again. Like,
to be honest,
it would have just damaged their PR as well. So I understand that perspective at least, and they're just waiting for something, for like an actual resolution to come before they disclose that. So as much as I'd rather them do that, at least I understand. I can sympathize why they wouldn't want to put attention on that, especially like right before they're about to play a tournament, right?
To be
So
honest,
there's a lot of things that.
To be honest, just saying what we already know from that report is, oh, our coach is actually in talks with this other team,
right?
Yes.
And we don't want to have him because he's talking to this team and we're going to play against this team. So there's no point in having him around. And that's it. For the time being, he'll just sit this out. And maybe he comes back, maybe he doesn't. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. But this is kind of the issue with all of these things. Oh, if he's contracted or if he's not contracted, there's so much in CS that happens behind closed doors that it's irrelevant, but in the end, it's just like on a piece of paper. It doesn't really change these motivations in some of these cases.
So the thing that gets me is the story that HUNDEN's trying to spin about this whole thing. Does that not bother you guys? The story that he's trying to spin here?
I don't know what story it even is. It's like the worst story ever told by anyone. It makes no sense. Just like hops over here, over there. To be honest, it's his fault. He went to TV2 and they chopped up his fucking interview in 4 pieces, let it out in whatever way they wanted to.
There's more coming, by the way, as far as I know.
And there is more coming. And it makes no sense. It's just everyone's already pissed off, doesn't even want to click on those articles anymore. It's just
the tabloid media of Denmark, right?
I don't think, I mean, that's what I thought, but apparently it's not a tabloid. But
it seems like tabloid nonsense in the way that they're handling it, doesn't it? Like,
sure. But I mean, I guess that's definitely a problem, right? Because from what I know, they were kind of, it's their decision to release the parts of the interview. It's not HUNDEN's decision. It's just coming out of TV2, right? So that's kind of the information that I have. So like, obviously a part of it is on them for releasing this like by bits and not releasing the whole thing. and just like letting all the information out at some point. Maybe they have reasons for that. I don't know what they are.
I get as
but
many clicks as possible.
that's
What-
obviously that's definitely a
more
part of it,
transparent than Hunden.
right?
Like, what are we? Why are we pretending? Right? Like, this is a news website. Their job is to get as many clicks as possible. They're going to take the advantage of the fact that Heroic are the biggest rival of Astralis in Denmark, one of the most watched things in Denmark. The country of Denmark loves Counter-Strike. Let's milk as absolutely as much as we possibly can out of this shit. Just like, let's talk about the level of nonsense that happened with all this. Heroic put Hunden's name on a fucking billboard that he was coming back. Like, can we just for a second realize that we're not dealing with a normal Counter-Strike nation? This is the Counter-Strike nation at the moment, right? And they are grabbing this, and whether you think they're a tabloid website or not, what they're doing is they're turning our stuff that we just want an answer to into a fucking circus. They're turning it into a circus. Like, this story from Hunden, I could easily make up a believable story on the other side, right? With all the things that we know. You ready for it? Ready for this? Speculation, ladies and gentlemen. This is wild speculation. None of this I know is true. This is a story that I'm making up based off the little bits of information that we do have, right? Astralis come knocking on the door. We know it's every Dane's fucking dream to join Astralis. We've heard that from players' mouths in interviews before, right? We've heard it from the ESIC interview where his mum would be at a party talking to some friends. What does your son do? Oh, he's a professional Counter-Strike player. Does he play for Astralis? Oh, no, he plays for Heroic, right? We all know that everybody wants to be a part of Astralis. So first of all, Hunden, already with this tumultuous relationship that has transpired with Heroic, he's walking around on eggshells, right? Because he fucked up, he cheated, right? Whatever. He's been given a second chance within the team. Now, whether or not this player stuff, right? This is where I could really go wild down the fucking hole, but I won't, right? Astralis come knocking on the door. Listen, mate, our team's falling apart. Our star Orper, he's gone over to a bloody Swedish team. He's fucking done with Denmark. A couple of other boys here, they're not too happy with how things have been panning out in Astralis the last couple of years. We're going to keep Glaive. You know, he's going to stay. We got this young rifler called Bubsky. You played with him before. We got this kid called Lucky. You can have him too. And Hunden, one of the things that you were literally the most well-known for in all of Danish Counter-Strike is curating younger players, is having talented players and giving them a platform. Do you want to come and to Astralis, aka Denmark's Counter-Strike team, and rebuild for the future? Yeah, I want to do that. Let me just go to Heroic, who probably owe me a favor. Let me see if I can get out of this contract. Hello, Mr. Heroic boss man. I want to go to our biggest rival nationally, and I want to go to their team, and I want to coach for them now. Sorry, what, mate? Yeah, no, I just want to go and I just want to retire. I just want to quit Heroic. I don't want to be done. Here's my resignation letter. I want to go. Mate, you're going to fucking serve out your contract. What nonsense is this? You're going to sit in a fucking bench over there and you're going to wait. Okay, well, now I'm Hunden. I'm in the corner. I can't go to Astralis. I have to wait with Heroic now. I don't want to sit it out. Oh, but what if I give what if I send the documents to the biggest rival? What if I do that? Then they're going to have the information and then maybe they can win and I can be working for them on the side, man. I can be on the side, man. And then he sends the fucking documents and it all explodes. And now, because Heroic aren't going to fucking let him out of his contract, they're actually going after the cunt. They're going to sue him. They're going to sue him. They're going to take him for damages of leaking IP, intellectual property. They're going to fucking ruin his life. Now the guy's looking around the room. How many more times can I fuck up in the last year? I fucked up too many times. Well, you know what? I'm going down guns blazing, boys. You're all fucking coming with me. They did it. I've got evidence. This is what's happening. This is like, that is the story I built in my mind. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I'm just fucking speculating. But that could be just as true as Heroic being mean to Hunden and trying to like we don't have evidence to say my story is true or Hunden's story is true. It's just his word. Like, yep. What are we talking about here? Like, release the fucking evidence, Hunden. If Heroic cheated,
release the contract.
Heroic. Like, if Heroic cheated,
it would have been. You know what? It would have been even stupider than what you just said. If he leaked those documents just to get out of the contract.
And then it blew up in his face like this. Imagine that.
That's also a thing. Like
cause for termination.
Yeah, he could have done that.
Exactly. That's maybe he's just trying to force Heroic's hand, right? Like that's a genuine theory. I don't know if that's true, obviously, but let's say that's the theory. That would be even stupider that he just brought it up on himself. Not necessarily. I don't even believe being malicious or wanting Astralis to win that match or having the Cologne tournament's results being affected, right? Like that could not even enter that conversation.
Yeah,
could just be okay. I'm in a shit position with Heroic. I can't get out of this contract. here's how I can do it, and I only get technically, what he could have thought is I only get in trouble for breaking my contract. That's it. There's no way I'm going to be in trouble in any other way.
Maybe he even went to the ESIC website and like looked at the code of conduct. There's nothing about this. There's nothing mentioned. Like the rule he got banned on is the catch-all clause, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just presenting a theory that like obviously sounds relatively compelling, right? That's entirely possible that this happened.
Like, we want to go further down the rabbit hole. Imagine the future employer said to him, "Hey, Hunden, what if you just we've read your contract? What if you just leak us some documents and then they'll fire you and then we can have you for free?" Crazy, ridiculous speculation, but also we could go down that. This is what we're saying. It's all possible.
The problem is like when I hear this information coming out, and the reason why also we didn't talk about this Hunden case much over the past like couple of episodes is because there is some information, but a lot of it behind the scenes, and you can't really like people expected us to like say Hunden is shit, but then we saw it 2 or 3 times. Everyone's like, "Oh no, but this happened. Oh no, now I'm on this side." So now we have at least something to talk about.
Yeah,
it's like we have no fucking idea. I personally just expect everyone to be like fairly smart, but with things that are coming out, it's obvious that they're not. Like, what the fuck are half of these people doing? This is so fucking stupid, especially if it turns out that actually Hunden did work with the players and the players are involved in the fucking camera bug. Imagine how fucking I'm literally losing my mind how someone could actually be like, my whole organization is just gonna fall apart if this comes out. But I'm gonna be a cunt, and I'm not gonna let this guy out of the contract because like he potentially has a fucking nuclear bomb in his pocket to just destroy us, everyone. I cannot comprehend this. This is just every day I wake up and I think about it and like this can't be real. Like
it's crazy. It's crazy. Like I don't know. I don't know what we can do with this situation where it stands. What is the next step that we like? Honestly, the thing that we all want now, right? Because do you boys feel like everything else is done? Like Hunden is not going to appeal. What's he going to appeal? Ian said that 200 plus documents, right? He didn't want to say exact figure. But...
I mean, I think the fact that like Ian essentially confirmed that what Heroic are saying the documents are actually about. So
what Heroics? Yes.
Yeah. I think that's. Like the fact that Hunden didn't even contend that and didn't even respond to that. And by the way, I asked for a response for that I didn't get one. And he's obviously not come out with anything pertaining to that since then. So like that alone should tell you a lot. And secondly, like the fact that Ian just confirmed that that's essentially like why he was banned.
Yeah.
That's what the documents included. Like that's like, I don't know how you get out of that. I don't see a reasonable excuse for him to do that. I just think
maybe his penalty could go down though. Maybe it could be 1 year, right? There are things that
maybe
he could do, but also with this implication that he lied before and he got a concession for something that he admitted to, which he now says is not true, also puts him in some sort of trouble, right?
I don't even know if he could like what he could do to get the ban reduced. To be fair, I don't see. Like maybe the appeals committee will see it differently,
maybe
it was too serious, but whatever. Yeah, sure. I guess
maybe they see it like you see it in terms of like it wasn't taxes, and so maybe it doesn't deserve such a big penalty. Blah blah.
But
I don't know.
Just on that, if he does appeal, right, and it goes to that court of whatever it would be, that I guess like a tribunal or something. The people who Ian were listing were lawyers, so like. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but they're more black and white than gray, right? And with what Hunden has done in terms of the line of integrity, that line of integrity that Ian was explaining, I can see that line, right?
I mean, people could see it shifted a little bit differently, based on like that the threat didn't materialize, or that like it wasn't direct, that the team that the match result wouldn't have been directly affected, maybe just like indirectly based on how the team
maybe he can also explain why he did it, right? Maybe he was like, I was misled by this person, or maybe I thought I was just sharing this one video, but I shared the whole folder. I don't know. Like, maybe there is something.
Got it.
A lot of things that he could have said that are better than what he said in all of these interviews so far. in terms of, at least for him. I don't know.
Let's do this, because I'm sure we'll talk about this in the next episode, which we're going to do.
Yeah, let's put a cap on it and just finish off the show, kind of.
Okay. Let's quickly talk about EPL. So we got Group C finishing off tonight. So we have FaZe Clan versus Na'Vi, Big versus Mouse, EG versus Fnatic. People ask the question, why are all the matches on at the same time? Because each and every match has a direct impact on the outcome of the overall standings of the group. This is to preserve what we've just been talking about, guys. The integrity. There you go.
Competitive integrity.
Right. And so this is why they're all played at the same time. So just to quickly run through this, first and foremost, EG are out and Na'Vi are already qualified. Right. Watch this. Striker's going to fact check me on all of these. I've got an email just here, which should do it. Hold on.
I mean, I went through it with
Mihal,
Mihal, so I like you're getting the same information that we kind of exchanged. So I'm hoping you get it right.
All right. So EG are out, but Fnatic still have a chance to qualify, although they are unable to finish first. They need to win and hope that FaZe loses, otherwise they are out. So if you're a Fnatic fan, Fnatic need to beat EG, and you need Na'Vi to beat FaZe Clan. Okay, if you're a Fnatic fan. Now, Fnatic fans, you can fuck off. Next set of fans, Mouse Sports fans. Their fate is in their own hands. If they win, they are through no matter what happens.
In second or third place.
In second or third place.
Insane, just how they started.
Yeah.
So
what were they?
0-3?
0-3?
I think.
0-2.
0-2. You're right. No, 2-2. Okay. So for Big, not only need to win, but they require either Fnatic or Na'Vi to lose their match. Both Mouse
essentially
and Big,
for a big upset to happen on the other two matches.
Yeah. So Big are kind of screwed, right? They need to win, but they need for Fnatic or Na'Vi to lose. Okay. The last set of little bits and bobs here. FaZe versus Na'Vi is for first place. Whoever wins the match will come first.
Yep.
However, for FaZe, if they end up, where are we here? FaZe are not qualified yet, and they could end up being out if they lose. Fnatic wins and Mouse wins. Okay.
Yes.
Let me read that again. FaZe are not qualified yet, and they could end up being out if they lose. Fnatic wins and Mouse wins. So if FaZe loses, they essentially need either Big to win or EG to win in order to be safe and qualify for the playoffs.
Yep.
There you go. That's the context of that, everybody. Now let's just dive into this. Prof, you're talking about Mouse Sports, their performance. Is there a certain team here that stands out to you that you want to talk about?
I guess probably Fnatic, because they're a new team. I don't know what you thought about. Like, it's hard to draw any conclusions from this, especially if you don't watch all of the games. If you watch 2 games, I watched 2 games of Fnatic that they won. They looked kind of good, and then I saw that they lost other games, and nothing really makes sense. Everyone's beating everyone. But from Fnatic's point of view, it really feels like an Alex team already. That's my takeaway. A bit of that, just like being pretty aggressive on CT side, like flanking people on overpass, flanking people on Mirage, like being on T-spawn all the time as a CT. Stuff like that, you don't really see that much from other teams, which I think it's good for the players that they have. I think it kind of meshes, but I'm also not set on this being a super uncounterable approach.
Okay.
Because it feels counterable at this point. But since they're a new team, you can forgive them that, and they're a new team, so people can't counter them yet, right? That's how I feel about them so far.
All right. Well, in the early go for it.
No, just one more thing that I see with that is, like, if it wasn't for this Mouse series where he wasn't playing super well, I've been pretty impressed with Mezzi.
Yeah.
In particular, I think him being good in this team was a big factor in whether they were going to make it or not. Like that was kind of like him and Alex, obviously, like whether Alex was going to make this work and stuff like that. But obviously, in terms of firepower, like we were looking at Mezzi and hoping that he would be able to replicate some of what he did in Endpoint. And I think so far he's shown that.
Yep. I think on the other end of the spectrum here, we should talk about Jaquinho, right? Because he got a lot of criticism for his performances in the first couple of games. Now, I think he's course corrected in some, but I just want to give people a little bit of understanding here. Imagine you're at home in your bedroom. Let's just say even your house. Maybe it's an apartment. You live in a place. Maybe you're renting it. And there's somebody else who's an authority figure over your space, right? Your space is an absolute fucking tip. Right, it's a mess. Like there's fucking food wrappers everywhere. You're not taking the plates out. The milk's gone moldy. There's fucking mouse shit all over the place. And then, I don't know. And then fucking you have Prof, and Prof moves in, and he's going to be your roommate now. He needs somewhere to stay. Prof moves in, and then Mum and Dad come home, and Prof gets just as in trouble as you for the messy room. Jaquinho was already in the sinking ship that was Fnatic. They have been fucked for some time. This is his first shot in playing in what could be a functioning team. So give the guy an event or two, would you? Like, let him have a fuck up. Let him have a few. Let him have a couple of misses. We all love a good miss. We're that's an ugly miss, you know. Like we all love it. Someone has to miss. Let him have a couple. Let him get the nerves out the way. He's playing in the group again against Na'Vi, Big, fucking FaZe, right? Like these are big teams that are in this group. So give him a break, right? And if he's still missing in a couple of events' time, you get your pitchforks back out and you can say, well, you know, Jackie, because there are a lot of promising AWPers. There's a very promising AWPer in the Fnatic Academy team. So let's save that for the future. But we can be nice to him now. Okay, we leave Fnatic there.
Yeah.
All right. EG, as expected, right?
I mean, if anything, they've been playing better than I expected. Even like they had that chance against FaZe. They had some close matches that I wouldn't have expected from them. So as much as they're 0-4, like they've done about as good as could have been expected. Maybe they could have taken a win off somebody, but that's pretty much it. Like we never expected them to be in the contention. So
yeah.
Dapp's been hitting some shots though. Like it's not.
Yeah,
he looks serviceable.
That's true.
He's looked serviceable. I know he's at the bottom of the stats for the group.
Wait, let me see.
He is at the bottom. He's at the bottom of the group. Out of all the teams in the group, it's him and Mihu and Cirque, the bottom three. Right.
Mihu was actually like the disappointing thing for me. Like, he had a what did they play last? Was it Cologne?
Right? Yeah, I think it was Cologne.
He was doing great. A couple of matches only that they played, but that's kind of the bad point for me. But EG overall, considering they're playing with their coach Standen, who came back from a different game a month ago, fine. Some very good halves, like against Mouse Sports as well. They had good halves on, I think, T sides, and then CT side just crumbled. So whatever, unfortunate, but can't really judge much.
Yeah, I don't think we were expecting a lot here. And it's going to be curious. I guess they'll be playing with Daps for the foreseeable future until we get an announcement about Stan. I don't know if he's going to return for Blast or not. They have Blast kicking on after Pro League ends.
He claimed he would, but who knows?
Claimed he would?
Yeah, that he would be back for Blast,
okay. Well, then he gets... Yeah, I guess if he... Yeah, interesting to see. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with him. Okay, so I guess people are pretty curious about these other names. Na'Vi had the loss against Big. Water off the Ducks back. They're still qualified. FaZe, I think FaZe have been... like feels like they believe a little bit, right? Like we're getting some classic FaZe. We had a great Olaf performance yesterday in their 2-0 victory, right? That was good. I guess maybe Big is the other one here, and then maybe we can go into Group D or the Parry match thing. Big with Gade. What are we feeling? Is it lukewarm? Is it scorching hot? Are we a little bit, is it a bit frigid? What are we thinking?
Feels like Big almost.
Okay.
Some good team play. This and that, nice timings. Searson's been playing okay. Tabson's been playing pretty well. So these are the things that we talked about on the Tabson show. Like they have to have these two players be a bit more proactive. Gade seemed okay. The comms and everything seemed okay.
Fine.
Seemed like they, when there are some openings, they took them. So I just big for so far.
Yeah. Tizian's been the one who I think has actually given me more than I'd expect from a Tizian level performance. He's been opening some rounds. He's been closing some rounds. Keto actually is their second lowest rated player other than Gade. Gade, we're going to expect a couple of teething issues.
He's the lowest now, actually, I think.
He is
or
now.
Maybe I'm crazy. No, I think I have the wrong. No, never mind.
Yeah, so they're pretty close to each other anyway. It's not really much separating those two. So Keto's probably one who you'd be expecting to get a bit more out with maybe the pointy type of player he is without Xantares there. Like that's kind of me thinking that Keto
that's
also
what
entries.
That's also what I kind of felt that's going to happen. That Keto's going to maybe have some more space, but that doesn't seem to be that way.
Maybe Tabson took it.
We'll see. That had that crazy Mirage game against Na'Vi.
Crazy Dust 2 game as well, where he just was fucking dominating people. So yeah, okay. So guys, tune in tonight at 8 p.m. if you guys want to see the outcome of that group. If not, we'll cover it on the next episode. What are we looking at next here?
We have the matchmaker thing, which is tied into Group D.
Okay.
I just did the same as we did with Tabson. So
nice. Okay, we can do this collectively. Let's do this then.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, guys. Obviously, we've run over. That was expected with today's show. We've been lucky that we have an earlier time, and thank you for Lucas for not telling us to turn it off just yet. Lucas, if you can get us the Parry Matchmaker bit and bob, we can check that one out. We can go through this. We can round up Group D, and then we can be done for the day. Maybe while we have this little time, in the future, the next episode that we are doing is going to be on Monday the 6th. We got the link now. and we have a guest confirmed for that. So we'll have more information about that. And I think that the next show we'll be doing after that one in September will be on either the 13th or the 14th. Okay. Who's doing this? Prof, you want to?
We can just.
I mean, I can
combine.
like check it, but
okay.
We can we
Talk
can talk
together.
about it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nip.
NIP. Someone
I'm
start.
just running through the options.
If we can,
Top of group, bottom of group, make playoffs, good impression, bad impression, deep run in the playoffs.
If we can start with, I start with Gambit. I'd say deep run in the playoffs. I have absolute confidence in Gambit. They have also been boot camping from like August 7th or something.
Okay.
So they should be informed.
August 7th.
Yeah, something like that.
Jesus. Okay. All right. That was pretty quick into the play, right? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we can follow with Team One, I suppose, because they're kind of like
bottom of the group.
They're by far the worst team in this group. Like, there's not even a question. Like, the only way I can see them taking a win is like if they face Furia Classic, you know, Brazilian matchup, blah 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 blah. I just don't think. I just think that's the only one that they can take. So I would say bottom of the group.
I think if I can whack one in here.
Here we go.
Liquid are going to make a bad impression.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Are we taking into consideration that Fallen might be calling?
We're just taking into consideration the landslide that is North American Counter-Strike. But nothing's going right for it, right? Bad News Bears got dumpstered. EG are probably going to go 0-5. Like, I just want to...
Oh my God, if they all go 0-5, that's...
the North American teams, right? We know how bad it is over there. Like
that'll be very bad. But
I know Liquid have been pracking over here for a while, right? They've been boot camping in the Netherlands, I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
At least a week. At least a week, I'd say.
What do you guys think about Liquid?
I don't have any feelings.
Look, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I just don't know what to think about this Fallen thing. Like, it's just like we're going back and forth between Fallen and Stewie. I just wish they would fucking make a decision. Like, that's where I'm at. So I'm not excited about them until I see them like get their shit together. So I can see the bad impression.
To be honest, I don't really expect much from Furia either. So
yeah, with Drop, right? We don't even like he's not an AWPer.
No, they're playing with Honda.
Oh, Honda has to play. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So basically, a dead
but then
team
they
playing,
can't give a bad impression because we know it's not their team, right? They get that get that lovely shield of It's not our actual lineup.
Top of group it is.
Put both of them in bad impression.
Bad impression both. Okay.
Yeah, maybe Entropic makes it then.
Good
we
impression.
Yeah, good impression at least.
NIP makes playoffs.
Okay.
They should make playoffs, yeah.
They should.
NIP
should
should be in a
they
position.
should make playoffs.
Yeah, they should be in a position to make playoffs here for sure.
And give Gambit 2. Give them top of the group as well. Give them top of the group and deep
That makes
playoff
sense.
run. Yeah, spoil them. They deserve it. But yeah, I don't know. Like NIP, this group, if they weren't to make playoffs, that would be a massive disappointment. Like,
yeah,
I think that
I agree.
They are, without too much of an argument, the second or third best team in this group. Right? Yep. Like, so if they fuck this one up, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awkward, like, I don't know where to put that Entropic in this, honestly. Like, I feel like obviously, like, they're not on the same level. They haven't played at the same level for like as NIP have and stuff like that. But something tells me that they can take that match and NIP will be playing for third place with Liquid or something.
This is like a life game for them. You know what I mean? Like, this is their opportunity.
Yeah.
If you just take a look at the matches that they've been playing in recent history, right? It was the Multivibes Knockout Series, the Pinnacle Cup, the Alicia Invitational, the Starlight Sierras RMR. This is the big boys. Like, obviously the RMR is big boys, but the other events that you heard me like, this is the big boy games. Like, and they just beat the other day. They beat ENTS. They beat Copenhagen Flames. Like, they beat K23. They beat these
like, this
other
team
names.
has shown that they can play with some of the top teams, even if they haven't necessarily won against a lot of them. But they've beaten Virtus Pro. I think they've taken a map off Navi or something in one of these RMRs. I might be wrong with that. I don't remember. But they've obviously have some experience playing in these teams, and they've shown decent results against them. So I definitely wouldn't count them out of playoffs contention.
Alien fucks. Like, that guy's good. Him and Forrester in the team, they're good. I remember casting Alien and Lackey like it's like 2 years ago now, but I remember casting them. I thought, yeah, these guys, they're not bad. Like, they're definitely malleable individuals here. Hooch is the coach, Nickelback for the laughs, right? I think Lackey hasn't necessarily been having the best form. If you just go and check his stats in the team, it's not fantabulous.
Right. So good impression?
Yeah. I feel good impression.
Yeah. Oh, I
What
like
if Forrest and Crod feel under pressure because of
With the
obviously
hard
the
legion shit.
yeah?
that.
Whoa.
The-
What do you want to
Where did that
elaborate
come
on that
from?
for everybody?
I mean, obviously with the Hunden heroic implication, implying that his player were aware of the cheating. Crad and Forrester played for Hard Legion / Dream Eaters, which were coached by the infamous, now infamous Zoner.
Everyone's favorite.
464 maps of coach abuse or whatever rounds. So yeah, they played for that team. Obviously, also implied that they didn't know anything. So just a fun little nugget of knowledge right there.
Okay. Do we have anything else on this? We fucking
No,
nailed
Not
it.
really.
That's
All right.
that's the end.
That was
That's
the
it.
Parry Match Matchmaker segment, brought to you by Parry Match. Gamble responsibly. See those there? I've been working on those. The little
Okay.
tagline thing. So I guess that you guys get the majority of our thoughts about this, right? We think that Gambit are going to do very well, right? Just to summarize, we think that Liquid might be shaky. We're not expecting a lot from the likes of Team One and Furia, right? NIP are in a position where they should do well and should get through to the group stage. And Entropic can be the thorn in the side of the likes of Liquid and Furia to potentially get some upsets and steal one of those playoff spots. Did that feel like a decent summary?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's our general gist for Group D. And in 2 minutes' time, we'll have been live for 3 hours.
There we go.
So we're done.
Lucas is loving it. We did our best in terms of trying to explain and talk about this whole Hunden situation and other situations. Probably everyone's gonna say that we are awful.
We were too nice.
Didn't ask any of the hard questions.
Yep.
So classic. Don't really expect much from that, but whatever.
Yeah, like it's a really, guys, like the thing is, when you want to have a conversation, like I'm not going to pretend that I'm a good interviewer. I'm not an interviewer. I'm a plumber who's a Counter-Strike commentator now. I played professionally. I can't even spell Chronicles without having to Google it and make sure that I spelt it right. Like this is.
You don't have to spell it. You just have to say it.
Yeah, well, sometimes I write things down too. But like I apologize if I let you guys down in that regard. I kind of try and go from the idiot standpoint, right? Like just the everyman. And I'm also, the older I get, the more reasonable I become. If you knew me personally, I'm a bit of an irrational fucking knob jockey, actually. But the older I get, yeah.
Oh, nothing. I just reacted to something. Prop also reacted in the chat. Like I usually don't look at the chat, but now that we finished, I just wanted to see what people were saying. And somebody said, "You guys did great, even striker."
There we go.
Yeah. But yeah, like this
Nice
is something.
to see a fan.
This is something that we're trying to work through, and it's something that I'm trying to get better with. So yeah, lucky I had Striker and Prof here. So they were the checks and balance to my brain damage. So let's close this one down. This has been episode 52. Episode 7 of the Hunden Chronicles, The Dog Bites Back, has now come to its close. And I'm sure we'll be touching on it again in the near future. As I mentioned before, we're going to be live again on the 6th. We have a guest. You'll be able to find us same time. Actually, no, 8 p.m. We're doing 8 p.m.
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Yep.
On Monday, we have a guest.
Very
and
nice
then,
guest.
yeah, in the future, we'll let you guys know what's happening when it's happening. If you want to find our audio only stuff, anchor.fm/HLTV.org, I think, or is it just HLTV? I think it's just HLTV. Let me find anchor.fm/HLTV. Just HLTV, no org. And once again, thanks again to the sponsors. Big shout out to Xtrfy, Parry Match, and of course, Bitskins. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Later.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets guaranteed.
Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna see you rolling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parimatch, your esports teammate. Stuck ranking up? Lost the motivation to grind? Bored of clicking heads on aim maps? Get some color into your game. Bitskins.com. Buying and selling skins made easy. Tons of payment methods and instant cash outs. Just choose your dream skins, select your preferred payment method, and start grinding again. If you want to play like the pros, you gotta look like the pros.